Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, October 28th, 2024. And as always, plenty going on in the world of boxing. So we're getting towards the end of the year now. The big fights, well, most of them have been one and done, whatever you might want to call it. We have got a couple to go, of course. The main one being Usyk Fury 2 in December, but still plenty to talk about. I can see there's a few of you guys in the chat at the moment. Who we got there? Andrew Williams, I can see there. Old mate Big J, Glenn. Who else we got? I think that's about it. There's a few watching, which is good. So again, welcome to everyone that's tuned in, and again, welcome also those that are listening to this on Spotify after the fact. So we'll get into some comments. We'll see how we go with time-wise tonight. See if we can keep it rolling as 2 hours as normal, but the rest is up to you guys and see what we can bring up. All right, let's get into it, guys. First in the chat, we have Andrew Williams. Any thoughts on Dempsey McKean versus Moses Itoma on the Fury versus Usyk undercard? Moses only 19, but a monster. Tough fight for Dempsey, if I'm being honest, Andrew. I know... Itoma's only, he had 10 fights or something like that? So, look, Dempsey's in with a chance, but the big ass on those cards over there, you know, like they don't match them up very well. There's no easy fights, put it that way. And we saw that Dempsey, who hasn't fought since being stopped by Vergil. So, look, it's a tough one. Definitely in the fight, Andrew, but we just don't know how much that loss took out of him. How much has improved since then? What's it been, about 18 months? Where is it? I've got box rec up here. Let me just have a quick look. The joys of live TV. Hang on. I've spelt that wrong. Dempsey McKean. All right. He hasn't fought since, if I can bring it up here. The Tower, there he is. All right, so he's 22-1. Hasn't fought since August 2023, so it's not that bad. I actually thought it was maybe the start of last year. So yeah, look, that's probably the norm these days, isn't it, with these boxers? But Moses Itoma, so yeah, he's 10-0, but hasn't really fought anyone of note. I mean, his last fight, Maurice Awash, is it Wak? What is it? How do you pronounce that? 38-10. Before that, 25-3, 6-2. So probably his last two fights, I suppose, the competition's been just okay. Look, but again, they've obviously got their eye on him, Andrew, as far as maybe being someone to look at for the future. And I think this fight is maybe one of those sink or swim situations where the winner will get some priority treatment by all concerned, and the loser will have to maybe just go back and go on the local circuit and build them back up. But yeah, it should be. Look, it's great that he's actually on the card in the first place, isn't it, Andrew? And I don't think the card itself, in my opinion, is that sort of inspiring. Just a quick look at it at the moment. Where is it? So that card, so obviously Usyk and Fury. Boachuk and Madrimov. I think we went over this before, haven't we? Boachuk and Madrimov is the co-main. Isaac Lowe, Lee McGregor. No idea. Dennis McCann, Peter McGrail, Moses Itoma, and Dempsey McKean, Johnny Fisher, and David Allen. So not the most exciting undercard. Let's hope they might add a fight or two to it anyway. But look, great opportunity for him anyway, Andrew, and you've got to be in it to win it. But will be not an easy comeback fight for him. And if you can get past Itoma, then anything's possible because they've shown they love a winner. And they will get on board Dempsey McKean, you would think, if you can get past him. All right, old mate, Big J. I was waiting for this one. Just heard Jai Opetaia has been ordered by the IBF to fight Sin Cara. I knew the IBF doesn't muck around with mandatories, but this seems early even from them. So no unified belt anytime soon. Yeah, I have had a bit of a look at Sin Cara in the last few days, Big J, and look, I'll probably talk a little bit more about it in maybe one of the walking boxings and get more walking boxings and go over it a little bit more. But look, he's big, he's raw. He's 39 years of age, by the way. He had 22 fights? I think it's 18 knockouts. But the level of opposition has been very, very ordinary, to say the least. I went over his box rec today. And, yeah, look, he looks impressive, but he's looked impressive against some pretty average fighters. So, look, my opinion of the whole thing with Jai is, you know, there's a bit going on with Billum Smith and Zurdo Ramirez. I think this is the perfect sort of in-between fight for Jai. Get it out the road and then move on. But I don't expect much from Sin Cara, if I'm being honest. What's that, Big J? I would like to hear your thoughts on that. Hang on. Oh, hang on. It's a little bit all over the place as usual. All right, so just made a list of fights that that if the Aussie won, how it would have changed boxing. For example, if Chuck beat Odki and Hussein beat Pac-Man. Check it out on my Aussie Boxing Talk channel. Okay, yeah, I'll do that, Big J. Let's see. I would like to hear your thoughts on the subject. What fights you think would have changed the scope of boxing if the Aussie got the win? Talking about close decisions and screw jobs. There's a few, Big J. Look, the first one that obviously comes to mind for me is Jeff Fenech and Azuma Nelson, because it might have just been one fight in Jeff's career, but it would have made him not the first just go back there. Glenn's not real confident on McKean. He thinks Moses murders him. That's McKean. Look, I think he wouldn't have been the first to win 4 world titles. I know it had been done once or twice before that. Tommy Hearns was, of course, the first one, but he would have been the first undefeated fighter to do it. But all that aside, 4 belts aside, that's great. It would have been awesome for him. And I think a lot of you guys out there will agree with this. He was never the same fighter after that screw job. Never the same. And you look at the rematch, yes, Azuma Nelson came a lot better prepared than maybe what he did in the first fight, took Jeff a lot more seriously. And even from Jeff's own mouth, he's actually said that the rematch, he probably expected it to happen a little bit and maybe didn't train as hard as maybe he had in other fights and paid the price. And the pressure of fighting him in Australia and everything else. But I just think if he had won that first fight, who knows what could have happened after that with Jeff Fenech. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end, because after that, he lost to Calvin Grove. And then, it just never happened for Jeff after that. So that's probably the first one. What else is there? So I'm just trying to think. Obviously, Liam Wilson over Navarrete, the Danny Green over, who was it he fought? Fill me in there, guys. Jeez, I always get mental blanks on here when I go. I know all these guys, and then I get on here and get a bit of amnesia. Let me just have a look. I'm sure someone's already mentioned in the chat there, but I'll quickly bring it up. Now, just on Danny, by the way, he's actually doing the podcast with Taszyu Brown pretty soon, so keep a lookout for that. All right, so I'll just go back. Who the hell was it? What was it? 2005, I think, wasn't it? Marcus Bayer. Jeez, Lyndon. Get with it. So Marcus Bayer, that's probably one, especially that I think you've, and look, not to say it ruined Danny, but just who knows? You just don't know. I mean, I know you're asking for examples there. Who else was there? I don't know. I'll have a bit of a think about it anyway, BJ, but they're probably the first ones that come to mind. Of course, Andrew Maloney with Franco's another one. All right, we'll keep moving on anyway. I'll be here all night, but not a bad topic there. I think who you got there? And obviously you got there Skinny Hussein and Pac-Man. Well, that could possibly rival the Fenech Nelson one when you think about it, because Pac-Man, what he went on to do after that fight, and Hussey was sort of relegated back into the mix. It's a great topic. I like it. All right. Tommy, how are you, Tommy? The number one hitman in Australia. Okay, well, I'm doing well, thank you, Tommy. Thank you for that. The number one hitman, I like that. Hope Jack Catterall gets a title shot next. He's ranked second in the WBC and WBO, so he should get Puello or Tszyu for a belt. Yeah, well, they are talking about Liam Paro, Tommy. I know there's a little bit of water to go under the bridge with Liam fighting Richardson. Hitchin's not going to be an easy fight by any stretch, but Eddie Hearn has said that he would prefer Catterall to fight Liam Wilson. Not Liam Wilson. What's his name? Liam Paro. And I think it'll be a great fight. As far as the others, I'm not quite sure. Maybe Puello. Has he got a fight lined up? I'm not sure he has. I'm sure I read that. So anyway, Teofimo Lopez. I'm not quite sure Teofimo Lopez is going to want to chase Jack Catterall around for 12 rounds, Tommy. And Tommy, Jack fought a sensational fight, by the way. He fought the perfect fight against Regis Prograis. Wasn't the most exciting fight. Later in the fight, I thought it picked up a little bit, but the first 5 or 6 were not the greatest. But credit to Jack Catterall, Tommy. I thought he adapted pretty well. I thought at the halfway mark that it was pretty even. Maybe Prograis might have been just in front, but I thought the way that Jack Catterall really picked it up in the last few rounds, of course, got those 2 knockdowns. I think, look, if anyone deserves a title shot at 140, Tommy, it is that man. And I think Regis Prograis said as much after the fight. And strangely enough, he actually said that Jack Catterall's probably the best fighter he's been in with. And that includes Devin Haney. So it was strange that he would say that. I know there's emotions flowing after the fight and everything else, but he seemed quite sincere. And just speaking of Regis Prograis, by the way, he has announced that he's not actually retiring. He's just going to go to 147, which is not a bad decision. What is he, 32, 33? A little bit young yet. Still a bit of coin to be made for him. But out of all those champions, Tommy, look, I'd love for him to fight Liam Paro. But if not, I think maybe it's Puello. You would think that Valenzuela will fight Isaac Cruz again. Now, that's the fight they were talking about for the undercard of Morel and Benavides, and we haven't heard much about that since then. If anything, they're talking about Tank Davis and Lamont Roach being on the card now, and Jamel Charlo and I think Stephen Fulton. So some big fights happening in the next few months. But yeah, I think maybe Liam Paro will be the fight for me, Tommy, out of all those. But Puello does make sense. Puello gets the WBC belt, and then he might fight Liam Paro after that. There's Eminem. G'day to you too there, mate. Frankie D, how are you, Frankie? Kane Mac, how are you, Kane? Jules H, how are you there, mate? What do we got? Still recovering from last week's robust discussion. Still trying to process what happened last week. You and me both, Jules. Geez, it was a tough week, wasn't it? And you would have probably seen the video that I made of just pretty much imploring everyone to pick their bottom lips up off the ground and let's get on. We've got so much to look forward to in Australian boxing and so much happening at the moment. And people are just really quick to forget about the Jai Opetaias and Liam Paros and Cambosises and Maloney's and Sky Nicholsons of the world. And I understand Tim, even though I think 99% of boxing fans here in Australia would have had Jai at number one anyway. Make no mistake, Tim Tszyu was still the face of Australian boxing and the most popular fighter in Australia. So it was a kick in the guts for us all, Jules. But look, I think in the cold light of day, I think we've all accepted it for what it is. It happens. I thought Tim spoke really well after the fight, or the next day I think it was, when he said, look, no excuses, he got caught. I think he just needs a rest. More probably mentally rather than physically. I know he got knocked down, 4 times, so he does probably need to let his brain sort of have a bit of a spell, but I just think he needs to get out of Australia. And I'm not sure, there was a report that his mother, Natalia, or Natalie, I think it's Natalia, has suggested or almost demanded that the Tszyu boys go to Russia. Now, it was reported by a few different people, but I didn't see an actual quote from her. So I'm just assuming people are sort of making that up. I didn't see Natalia Tszyu said this or an actual statement from her. I just saw a lot of people saying, well, apparently their mum said this or their mum said that. So I think in the cold light of day, Jules, I think he needs to get out of Australia. Even if he doesn't, even if he keeps fighting in Australia, to get out of Australia with all the buzz, and I know it probably helps his career in some way because it helps the pay-per-views and his profile and his brand and everything else. But as far as just getting right down to the nitty-gritty of his career, I wouldn't mind him just, if it's Las Vegas, that's great. If it's Russia, that's great. I think it's going to be Las Vegas, but just get out of Australia, get away from everything here and just focus on boxing, because with all due respect to Tim over if it is in Las Vegas, he'll get the respect of being a former world champion, but they're not going to be rolling out the red carpet and sort of fawning over him like they sort of tend to here. So I think it's a great call, whether it's Russia or the US, to get out of Australia. And look, he still might come back to Australia and have a couple of fights, and that's great. But I just think he doesn't need, more importantly, just that mental stress of the pressure of carrying Australian boxing here at the moment. So, but yeah, it was a tough week, Jules. Make no mistake about that. And Glenn says, what happened last week? Well, I've just described that. Anyway, Tommy, I'm not the biggest Devin Haney fan, but I do think due to styles, he could school Catterall. He'll have a good 5 to 6 inch reach advantage. I think he can box from the outside, intermediate range, and pick him apart. I agree, Tommy. Devin Haney is just a lot better version of Regis Prograis, who I thought did have a lot of success. I thought Regis Prograis fought really well until those last 3 or 4 rounds. So, but I think Devin Haney, as they say, Tommy, there are levels in the sport, and I think he would be too good for Catterall. But what's Devin Haney going to do? Is he going to stay at 140? Is he going to go to 147? We haven't really heard Well, we have heard a lot from Devin Haney, but not really in regards to what exactly is he doing. So, and that fight's not going to happen anytime soon, you wouldn't have thought, without belts on the line. So Catterall, as I said, he deserves a world title shot. I'm sure he'll get a world title shot. The easiest ones probably is to make is the Liam Paro fight, both with Eddie Hearn. So a lot to play out in that situation there, Tommy. G'day, Peter. How are you there, mate? Jules, yep, just still trying to process team's loss, aren't we all there, mate? Hanoi Tripper, evening all. I'm early. I don't even have a question, but go Tim and Nikita. It's all good, Hanoi. Whatever you've got to talk about, and just we are. I mean, this is a boxing channel, of course, but we are about about 8 or 9 days from the biggest fight or matchup in world combat sports, if you might want to call it that. Of course, the American election things are heating up. I'm not going to get political, by the way. But we're only 8 or 9 days away from that, and that'll be the biggest fight of 2024, you'd probably think. So, a lot to play out there, and, geez, it's gotten nasty, hasn't it? It's gotten nasty. I saw Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro today in Philadelphia having their say, and what was it, 85,000? Was it 85,000, is that right? Or 85, whatever. But Madison Square Garden, absolute packed house for the Trump rally. And I did listen to his podcast with Joe Rogan the other day. It's well worth a listen. I've never actually listened to Joe Rogan before, just bits and pieces of it. But when these podcasts go for 3 or 4 hours, I mean, who's got 3 or 4 hours? And I suppose if you're at work or you're in the car, but geez, I sit down there for 3 hours or 4 hours in some instances. It's a fair old, it's a fair challenge to do it. So I did it over the weekend as I was just doing different things, and yeah, it was quite fascinating what he had to say. So who's going to win, guys, without getting too political and nasty with each other? Let us know who's going to win the election. All right, Glenn, what do we got? Wasn't overly impressed by the Catterall win. Was solid, but against a one-dimensional 36-year-old Regis, I think Paro handles him well. Was he 36? I only thought he was 32 or 33, Glenn. You might be right. You probably are right. Yeah, I thought he did it as much as he could do, Glenn. I thought look, Catterall's never been the most impressive or exciting type of fighter. I just thought he just did what he had to do to win, got it, and now he's more entitled to anyone or than anyone else to get a world title shot. So, yeah, no, I thought he was okay. As I said, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but I just thought that he boxed well and deserved his win. Tommy, what do you think of these IBF Mandos? In my opinion, Karen should have had to fight 2 title eliminators to get a Boots rematch. I do like Mandos, but I want them to be more credible. 100% with you there, Tommy. I'm all for enforcing mandatories, but they've got to make sense. And the IBF are the worst at the moment. I mean, fighting Boots Ennis again. I mean, I know the first fight, was it competitive? I mean, it was okay, but Boots won, I thought, in my opinion, quite clearly, and he hasn't really fought anyone since. Actually, while I'm going to bring it up. I'm pretty sure he's only had maybe 1 or 2 fights since then, and neither one of them were really against anyone of note. So I'll bring him up now. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name, so don't ask me to. All right, so since he lost to Boots, he's had 3 fights. So he had a second round stoppage of Michael Mercano in April 2023. He had that's not bad, a 9th round stoppage of Pietro Rossetti in October of 2023. He was 18-1. His last fight was a 12-round decision over Harry Scarf, who was 13-2 in May of this year. Not exactly exciting guys, Tommy, or really credentialed guys. So, as I said, I don't mind them pushing the mandatories as long as they make sense, and this fight does not make sense. It just doesn't. And, I mean, he's ahead of guys like, I've got the rankings actually in front of me here as we go. So, was it welterweight? Well, really, there's not really many other exciting fighters in that division. Maybe Connor Bennett, number 4. That's probably about it, really. It's a pretty barren division, the welterweight at the moment, isn't it? So anyway, I think, and you look at the heavyweight division as well, straight after the Usyk and Fury fight, they pushed the Dubois rematch on Usyk. Now, one thing is the timing was just shocking. How can you do it, like, was it a week or so after their fight? he'd already beaten this guy the previous year, so that didn't make sense. To enforce him to fight a guy that he'd already beaten 12 months earlier, or probably less than. We saw it with Terence Crawford. Now, maybe that was a little bit different. Maybe the conversation was had that, Terence, what are you doing? Are you going to defend it? He said, nah, all right, so we'll strip you. We had the Better Beav and Bivol situation as well. Geez, what was it, 4 or 5 days after the fight? The IBF of enforcing this other guy to fight Better Beav. It just doesn't make sense. The cruiserweight situation as well with Jai Opetaia. He wanted to fight Breeders, so they were going to strip him for wanting to fight Marius Breeders. It doesn't make sense. So, again, enforce the situation like the Canelo Alvarez thing. I don't mind. I mean, William Skull is just the most ridiculous number one challenger you've ever seen. But if Canelo didn't want to fight him, well, okay, I sort of support them stripping him. But the other ones just don't make sense, Tommy. All right, Peter, check out Boxing on the Edge. He has a good breakdown on Opetaia's opponent. All right, mate, I will do that. Hanoi, wish Chock beat Oddkey. He was so close. It looked a soft nothing punch, but it KO'd the man, and most think he was ahead. 2001, so, yeah, a while back, yeah. Well, 2001. Well, I think he only had, was it 5 or 6 fights when he fought Oddkey Hanoi? But, yeah, I mean, Savan Otkey's probably one of the lightest punches in world boxing history, and the fact he was able to knock out Chock, who ended up taking some pretty good punches down the track. And was he stopped again after that? Maybe once, was he? Can't remember. Anyway, we'll move on. But, yeah, that's more wishful thinking there, Hanoi. It wasn't necessarily a rip-off or a screw job or anything like that. It was just he got beat by a better fighter on the day. But there's a few of them around. Keep putting them in the chat there, guys. Tommy, I heard all this news, Vergil versus Boots in February, but now I'm hearing Vergil doesn't want the fight. Have you heard any news on that? Yes. I have since seen that the management of Vergil Ortiz and, of course, Oscar De La Hoya is in there as well. They want Fundora or Spence. So they're obviously going to fight each other. Of course, Crawford will be in there as well. I would love to see Vergil Ortiz and Barker Murtazaliev. What a fight that would be. Because you think about it, you've got Vergil and Murtazaliev fighting. You've got Boachok and Madrimov fighting each other. Spence Fundora. All the big guys are in play except for Crawford. And I think he's just sitting there at the moment just seeing what Canelo's going to do. And as soon as he makes a call on his May opponent, then I think you'll see the dominoes fall after that. But I did see that, Tommy, but that is the word, is it? But again, it doesn't make sense if he wants Fundora or Crawford. He's going to have to wait for them to fight, and then who knows? It could be another 7 or 8, 9 months after that before they're actually ready to fight again. And in Spencer's case, it could be 12 to 18 months. So I just think that fight makes the most sense, although I did see also that I think the manager of Boots Ennis did say that they're not really interested in moving up at this stage. So we'll see, but I'm with you there, Tommy. I would love to see that fight. Boots Ennis, I think, I get that he wants to maybe stay at 147, clean out the division, but when you're not cleaning out a lot, it doesn't make sense to stay there. You're only in it for a short time. Conor Benn probably makes a bit of sense. Maybe if Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia wants to go up to 147, maybe it's worth staying there. But if it's just a fight, well, who's his mandatories there? Apart from, we'll call him Karen. Jin Sasaki, Lewis Crocker, Paddy Donovan. Who are these people? I thought I knew a fair bit about boxing, guys, and what was going on with having my finger on the pulse. But who is David Papot? Nicholas Flaz. I mean, I think I need to do a bit more research on those fighters, guys, because I've never heard of them. Jules, in recent memory, Stevie Sparks versus Valenzuela in Mexico was a tough pill to swallow. Yeah, it was. I thought he was ripped off in that, Jules, for sure. Get the sense that Steve became a bit disenchanted by the sport after that. He did, Jules, but the good news is apparently he's back. He's going to be making a comeback under a new trainer. So that's very fascinating, isn't it? So I've always been a fan of Stevie Spark. Always turns up, always comes to fight. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting whether he can, get back to where he was. We'll see. Larry, how do you think Paro versus Catterall would play out? I see it as 50-50. Yeah. I think where it takes place probably has a lot to do with it too, Larry. I think if it's in England, obviously you would have to give Catterall a little bit more chance in it. And if it was in Australia, I would definitely give Paro the advantage. Oh, look, I think it's a good fight. I'm really intrigued to see what Liam brings the second time around. I think Hitchens is going to be a real tough fight for him. I think he wins, but I think it's going to be a very, very tough fight for Liam. And if he gets past that, it's always the backup fight. Did I just see... I'll come back to it. I did activate my super chat. Now, who was that? Was that you, Andy? I hope I get to the comments soon, mate. I think I've got to highlight it, don't I? I'll get to it when I get to it. But I forgot I'd actually activated the super chat. So thank you very much, Andy. When I get to your comment, I will bring it up. I just don't know how to do it where I am at the moment. But thank you. Good to see it's working. Where was I? Oh, the Paro Catterall fight playing out. Yeah. Look, if I had to pick one, I would definitely say at this stage Liam Paro. But Catterall will not be easy. That will be a tough, tough fight. And who knows if it's in England, the money will be there. Eddie Hearn will want it in England. Even though Paro's one of his fighters, Catterall, he's still an Englishman. He'll want it there in front of a lot bigger crowd. It would give Catterall a lot better chance. But it's a fascinating fight, Larry, and I like it. If I had to pick one, though, I'm still going for our man, Liam Paro. All right, Tommy. Tank is having venue issues so much for the face of boxing. People don't like roaches. Yeah, well, or don't like roach. Yeah, look, I did see that, Tommy, and the odds are now saying, or what are the odds makers, whatever, they're now saying that fight will probably take place on the Morale Benavides card, which I like. Makes the card a lot stronger. I don't see this venue issue thing. I don't understand that, if I'm being honest. I mean, all over America, there's got to be a million venues they could go to. And why are they having it in Houston? And even if there's no venues in Houston, well, why not just have it somewhere else? I reckon what I reckon's happening there, Tommy, is they realise it's not going to sell. They realise it's going to bomb. And they're saying, oh, what do we do now? We can't have this as a standalone event, pay-per-view. No one's probably going to turn up. No one's going to watch, especially in Houston. So the other thing they could probably do is look for a venue in one of their hometowns, or do what they're going to do, put on a big show in Vegas. The interesting thing there, Tom, is what fight would be main event. I would think that Benavides and Morale would be the main event, but is Tank now the A side that we think he is, and would he be the main event? I don't think Tank and Roach could carry a pay-per-view, but I think Benavides and Morale could, with Tank and Roach on the undercard. So Jack versus the winner of Paro Hitchens, I like that. Yeah. Well, the only thing is Jack would probably have to have another fight in between that, though, Tommy. That's probably the only thing, unless, I suppose, what is it now? Well, it's only, about 6 weeks away, so it's probably not going to be a massive issue, is it? I was just going to say maybe the fact that there's going to be a gap in between both of the fights, but they are quite close. And, if the winner's there, then I'm sure Jack will hang around. All right, Larry, also I'm getting tired of De La Hoya's nonsense saying that Matchroom ruined Regis' career. Isn't fighters challenging themselves what we all want? Oscar De La Plonka. He's the best of both worlds, isn't he, Larry? Like, on one hand, I really like his persona these days, but on the other hand, it's like, Oscar, will you just shut up and stop making a fool of yourself? Yeah, look, I'm with you there. I don't agree that Matchroom ruined Regis' career, just like I don't think Tim's career has been ruined by PBC or No Limit. I think you've got to challenge yourself. These guys, the people that make these accusations, this is why it's surprising that Oscar De La Hoya said it, because he was known as one of the admired fighters who always has fought the best. He would lose. He'd come back and fight good fighters straight away. So I'm not quite sure where he's coming from in this, apart from laying the boots into Eddie Hearn, of course. But I just like the fighters who aren't concerned with their actual records. They just want to continue to get the big fights. And obviously Tim Tszyu falls in that category, and they get criticised for doing it. I don't understand it. And as I said, De La Hoya is probably one of the main ones back in the day who just continued to fight the best time and time again, and his legacy says he's one of the greatest fighters ever, even though he suffered numerous losses. So I don't agree with that, Larry. I don't think Matchroom had a play in that. I mean, who else was Regis going to fight at this stage of his career? I mean, it was a world title eliminator. I mean, what else is he going to do? Just sit on his hands? I just don't understand that. Yep, shadow boxer, Paro Catterall is a good fight. Yep. Andrew, going back in history, what if Dave Sands got the fight against the greatest of them all, Sugar Ray Robinson? A what if? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good call too, Andrew. Of course, he was unfortunately killed in a car accident, Dave Sands. But yeah, there was talk he was going to fight Sugar Ray Robinson. I'm just trying to think of some of the other fighters we've had. As I said, the Maloney and Franco fight springs to mind straight away. The Navarrete Liam Wilson fight. I mean, Liam Wilson was on the verge of a world title. Must be hard to swallow. We'll have a think about it. All right, Bill. This morning he was talking about Ali and Tyson being world known. I think most of us love Ali for his fight out of the ring, willing to be jailed over his beliefs. I agree with Ali. Yeah, we didn't see my walking boxing this morning. I spoke about the 50-year anniversary of Muhammad Ali's win over George Foreman. And I just sort of spoke about the legacy that fight has still 50 years later. And not just Ali and Foreman, but Fraser, and I threw in Ken Norton as well. And the fact that all these years later we speak about that era, and I just sort of compared it to the perfect storm of boxing, similar to what we've got with Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Duran. There's probably some other little triangles or whatever, or rectangles you could talk about, fighters that have all fought each other. And I think I said De La Hoya and Trinidad, and even back in the day with Chavez and Meldrick Taylor and Whitaker, and I mean all those guys fighting each other. But that to me is the most famous era of heavyweight boxing. And I did mention that apart from Muhammad Ali, who is a person that is not just spoken about by boxing fans or even sports fans. He is just universally known as Muhammad Ali, whether you're a boxing fan or a sports fan. And I think Mike Tyson in 50 years' time will be talking about, well, probably not even that long, 20, 30, 40 years down the track, we'll be talking about him like we did with, or like we do now with Ali. Now, not to say that he would. It's nothing to do with what would have happened if they fought each other or anything like that. It's just the brand and the name. Now, and that's why I'm so against Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul. I don't want what are they called? The Gen Zs, whatever these days, in 20 or 30 years' time saying, yeah, remember Mike Tyson? He's the one that lost to Jake Paul. I don't want that. I want him, the baddest man on the planet. And yes, whether you thought he was up in the upper echelons of the best fighters of the heavyweight division in world history, that's another thing. But Tyson's name, I think, is with Ali as far as being just so recognisable from people from all walks of life, sport, boxing, just whatever. And probably more infamous is Mike Tyson, where Muhammad Ali is famous, but you get where I'm coming from. But yeah, and you're right, Bill. He is known a lot for his fight outside the ring, as far as going to jail for, or did he go to jail? I don't think he did, no, but he was suspended for 3 years for not going in the army. Yeah, it's only a small part of it all. I think he had so much going for him, did Muhammad Ali, and just an absolute icon. What's that, Shadow Boxer? The YouTube algorithm was brutal as a Tim fan after that fight. Days and days of recap videos. You're right, mate. As soon as you click on one, then you're just flooded with all these. I didn't realise there was so many pages out there, Shadow Boxer. There was so many, like, pages with, 20 followers and 50 followers and, with 50 views, 100 views. But because you click on one, they all come up. But I couldn't get enough of it because I really wanted to see what everyone else out there was thinking and saying about it all. And I've got my own opinions, and you would have seen that pretty much all last week, whether it be in walking boxing and talking boxing and the deep dive show, talking about the fight. But I just found it fascinating what people were thinking. And of course it was diverse as far as he's overrated and he's a hype job to, well, it's only a one-off thing. And, it was the argument. Apparently he had an argument with Kostya before the fight. I didn't really know about that. Was it getting ahead of himself? I just, in those situations, tend to break it down to the absolute basic stuff. And I just think he got caught. He didn't go in with the right mentality. I think he was a little bit distracted about what was happening outside of the fight. Maybe underestimated Bakaram Murtazalov a little bit and got caught with a ripper left hook, and that is it. So we can break it down as much as we want, Shadow Box, and that's all I think happened. So, but yeah, it was a tough week for everyone, especially was it Jules who said before it was a pretty rough week. I get where you're coming from there, mate. Glenn, if Tony Mundine had beaten Monzon, would have been epic. Yeah, it would have been, Glenn, but of course he got knocked out in that fight. Like same as Hector Thompson with Roberto Duran. It would have been great, but end of the day, I think he's more talking about fights that were either rip-offs or screw jobs or whatever it might have been. But Mundine and Hector Thompson and a lot of others since then have all been beaten comprehensively, so a little bit different. All right, Peter, Tim's last 2 defeats, he was training in America, and I think he needs to get back to his grassroots. Yeah, well, that's a really good way of looking at it, Peter. You're right. Yes, no, I can't argue with that. He did train in America, but maybe, good point. It's hard to come back. It's a really good point, but it's hard to sort of argue against your statement there. I think more than anything, maybe it's just getting out of the limelight. Because even though he was out of Australia, he was still doing all the interviews and the social media and all that sort of stuff. Maybe it's where he bases himself. I know he's going to be in Las Vegas, but I don't know. I just think maybe it comes down to, Peter, it's the mental side of things of maybe him going back to his roots as far as what it took for him to be a hungry fighter. And you remember when he first started to come, he just had a different little look in his eye. He had that glint. And I know, as they say, the eye of the tiger, whatever it was. But I think he just needs to maybe, if anything, to do what we always refer to Rocky on here, don't we? Do what Rocky did in Rocky 3, where he looks himself in the mirror, slams his fist into the wall, and looks himself in the eye, and really asks himself the question of where am I at, where am I going, what do I need to do to get back to where I was coming from. And I think that's probably where I'm more looking at. Yes, physically he needs to be out of Australia and based in America or Russia or wherever it might be, but I just think more so mentally he needs to look himself in the eye and go, all right, if I'm going to do this, then I need to, really look at how many interviews I'm doing, how often I'm on social media, what I'm saying to the media when I do talk, and just really just locking himself away for a little bit and just going back to basics. And I still stand by, I think he needs some more experience in the corner. I think he needs not even going to say a really well-known trainer, but someone that's been in the corner of a lot of world champions. There's a lot of them out there. He needs to also find the right fit as far as personality goes. They've got to obviously be able to work with Tim mentally as well as physically, and he's just got to make those calls, Peter, of what he's going to do. But I like what you said there, but I still stand by. He needs to go to America, but he just needs to mentally, more than anything, go back to the grassroots and start again. Yeah, Shadow Boxer says not enough good sparring. That's maybe another good point as well. He might have been training in America, but was he getting that really tough, hard sparring that he really needs? Bill, as for Mike Tyson, my opinion, if Cuss lived another decade, no one in any era beats him. Best there ever will be, too strong and too fast. Yeah, look, Bill, I'm with you there. And unfortunately, a little bit like the Muhammad Ali situation, that we never saw the best of Mike Tyson. Those 3 years that Muhammad Ali were out of the ring were probably his absolute peak years, and we never got to see him. And we still almost arguably rank him as the number one heavyweight. I do, but a lot of people say Joe Louis. But I think I was going to say Larry Holmes. I've got him on my mind because he's another underrated one as well. But I think for Mike Tyson, I think the minute he left Kevin Rooney, not necessarily Cuss, because we all knew that Cuss was on his last legs anyway, even when he took Mike Tyson under his wing and brought him into his home and his gym and everything like that. When he was with Kevin Rooney, he was an absolute different beast to what he ended up being. After that, he surrounded himself with yes men, with all the gangsters and all the people who just patted him on the back and stealing from him at the same time. I'm not sure the Kevin Rooney thing, but one thing with Kevin Rooney, he was always physically in great shape, mentally in great shape. All those hangers-on and gangster wannabes and all that weren't hanging around at the time. As soon as Kevin Rooney was out of the picture and Don King moved in and all those leeches and parasites moved in, Mike Tyson was never the same. And that's why I've always gone in the bat for Mike Tyson, because before the Buster Douglas fight, he was absolutely unstoppable. unstoppable. People say about, who would he fight? And hey, he cleaned out every single person of note of that era, bar Tim Witherspoon. And the only reason he didn't get hold of Tim Witherspoon is because Tim Witherspoon was having a warm-up fight, if you will, with Bone Crusher Smith, a guy he'd already beaten a couple of years earlier, in preparation for the Tyson unification fight, and got himself stopped in a round. He turned up about 30 pounds overweight and got himself stopped by Bone Crusher. Bone Crusher then got the fight with Tyson. So apart from Witherspoon, there's not one fighter of that era that Mike Tyson didn't beat, and beat handily. And he fought maybe 4 times a year. This is just unheard of. So that's why I go in the bat for our man Mike Tyson, which is why I'm so against the Jake Paul fight. But again, Bill, we just never saw peak Mike Tyson. And then even after, I think we saw a glimpse when he came back from the Buster Douglas fight. He had a couple of easy wins after that, but he beat Frank Bruno for the second time to get his title back. And then along comes Evander Holyfield, and that was pretty much it for Mike Tyson after that. And look, Evander Holyfield beat him fair and square. And in my opinion, Evander Holyfield had one of those styles that I think he could have beaten Mike Tyson in any stage of his career. He's just that type of fighter. So just in every fight, there's always a kryptonite fighter across the ring, and Evander Holyfield was that to Mike Tyson. But I think after that, never the same. And I just think, like Muhammad Ali, we missed the best 3 years of Mike Tyson's career. All right, we'll move on. I'm getting behind here, guys. Sorry about that. Matio Tapia's performance got quite a bit of praise from Teddy Atlas on his pod. Nice to see an Aussie fighter with a smaller profile get covered by a big channel and managed by a BDD friend. Yes, that's a deep dive friend. That's Mike Altamura. Yeah, look, full credit to Matio Tapia, Jules. Again, I don't think well, it was a draw anyway, wasn't it? But I don't think it was a draw, let alone him winning the fight. But I was really impressed with his ability to regroup, to get up off the canvas, to get back into the fight and make a fight of it. Again, I don't think it was a draw, but the fact that the judges called it a mandatory draw after what he went through for the first half of the fight, full credit to him. He's made of the right stuff physically. It's whether he can develop enough with his boxing skills to make a real run at it, Jules. And Saavedra's no slouch, make no mistake about that. But I would like to see those guys fight again and Tapia get a win this time, and then we can probably reassess from there. But if Teddy Atlas is praising him, Jules, well, he must be the goods. Tommy says Turkey has told Eddie the rematch is on Bivol versus Beterbiev, I should say. Excuse me. They're just waiting for confirmation. I'm glad I didn't want that IBF Mando versus Michael. Is it Efert? We'll call him. Well, I did see that, Tommy, but Bob Arum has actually said that the rematch will probably take place in October because of the Riyadh season event, or what is the season, and apparently it goes from October to February. So what they're saying is they can't do it after those dates now. The powers that be in Saudi Arabia have said, nope, we're just going to do it in those months and only in Saudi Arabia. So Beterbiev will probably fight Efart in between that, I would say, Tommy, and Bivol will probably take a tune-up fight as well. Andrew Tyson was great, but the streets beat him. Yeah, streets and also those pieces of shit that he let hang around him, Andrew. Yep, Trump, says Andrew. Yes, Glenn, come on. We're only having a bit of fun here. A lot of people on here saying Trump, then we'll take that as a no from you. Devon seems to want to settle things in the courtroom rather than in the ring. Seriously, he might as well be sporting a man bun. Yeah, what's going on with Devon? It's just all this whinging and complaining, and just get in the ring and fight, mate. No one wants to hear this stuff. But boxing fans want to see you in the ring. Yeah, I'm with you there, mate. He's turned into a bit of a soy boy, hasn't he, old Devon? Going a bit soft. All right, Jules. All right, we'll get a couple of comments here about the election. We'll move on. All right, Glenn's going to jump off. All right, Trump, Kamala, the big issues get covered on Deep Dive. Wheels on carry on, yes or no? Jules, if it's got wheels, leave it off the plane, okay? If it's got wheels, it should not be allowed on the plane. It should be checked underneath, all right? Now, I'm honest. I'll say I take my carry on with the wheels on because I'm allowed to. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it. But we're addressing the big issues on the deep dive show. Oh, not the deep dive show. Talking boxing anyway. Jules, Trump, Kamala, and are we allowed, or should we be allowed to have wheels on a carry on? The answer is no, Jules. He is a big boxing fan, Andrew Williams. And if you remember back in the day, and I don't want to, for all the non-Trump fans on here, I don't want to get into it, but this is boxing related, that it is true that he's probably more of a UFC fan these days, but he used to be a big boxing fan because back in the day, he made a big push. This is when he was in Atlantic City with his casinos down there, and he was making a big push into the boxing world. He wanted to take on Las Vegas, and he dragged a lot of those big fights from Vegas to Atlantic City. Now, some of those big heavyweight fights of the 80s, Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks, probably the biggest of those, I would probably think, was at the Atlantic City Convention Center. Holyfield and Foreman. I think Holyfield, did he fight? No, he didn't fight Larry Holmes. That was somewhere else. But Mike Tyson had probably 3, 4, 5 fights at the Atlantic City Convention Center, and he made a big push to get boxing there, and didn't last, of course, because now it's back in Vegas. But he was a big-time boxing fan back in the day, Andrew, and now looks like he's jumped into bed with the UFC and his mate Dana White. Larry, where does Campbell Hatton go from here? Got outboxed 2 times in a row in very entertaining fights. Is it the same old curse of living in a famous father's image? A little bit, Larry. This is a little bit different, though, because, yes, he's living in his image, but I think the fact of the matter, in my opinion, Larry, is that he shouldn't even be in that image in the first place. I think he is an honest domestic-level fighter, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. The boxing, or the sport of boxing, needs fighters like that at a domestic level. You got to remember, this is what even a lot of fighters don't understand sometimes. We all can't be undefeated, world champions. We all can't go off on the international circuit and fight for these belts all over the world. Sometimes you are what you are, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I just think Campbell Hatton, has just been showing that he's just an honest battler from England, and that's probably the way he should be handled. I don't want them to start putting him in there with more advanced guys than what he is, and I think that won't happen, because if you read between the lines with Eddie Hearn, he alluded to or hinted that Campbell Hatton probably with him is finished. He did make no bones that Matchroom is a company that deals in fighters on the up that they get behind to get to world title fights, and I think he sort of hinted that Campbell Hatton is not made from or cut from that material or from that cloth, and I wouldn't be surprised if Campbell Hatton goes back to the domestic circuit pretty soon. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Good, honest fighter, but yeah, he's not at that level, if you're asking me. And a little bit different because you look at someone like Tszyu, Chavez. I think they both had a talent. Even maybe, who else is there? Hector Camacho Jr. I'm just sort of throwing a few out there. There's a few out there that did have a little bit of ability, but it's really hard to measure up. I think Tim's probably the only one, in my opinion, that really, apart from last week, of course, has the potential to be able to actually live in his father's shadow. I don't think there's many others out there. Eubank Jr. hasn't been able to do it. I don't think Conor Benn will be able to do it. Who else is there? Whoever it is. But I think Tszyu, for me, is probably the only one I've seen that has the potential to actually live in their father's shadow. All right. Garden snake mentality. Bill Hack says, he's referring to Bill. Atlas trained Mike early on before he was pro, taking him all over the tournaments, not Cuss, he was too old. Rooney trained Mike whole pro career and became undisputed when Cuss already passed. We forget about Teddy Atlas, and of course we all know the famous story about Teddy Atlas putting a gun in, 14 or 15-year-old Mike Tyson's mouth. I think he was that old, might have been a little bit older. And I think that's where the bad blood between the two has probably stemmed from over the years, that Teddy Atlas never got over the fact that Mike ended up with Kevin Rooney. I think deep down Teddy Atlas wanted to train Mike Tyson. He knew just as well as everyone did that Mike had the potential to be the heavyweight champion, and I think the fact that never sort of panned out really grated on Teddy Atlas. I think from what I've seen and heard that they've actually buried the hatchet to some extent now. But I don't think Teddy was that impressed that Kevin Rooney was brought in by Cuss to take over Mike Tyson. What's that, Shadow Boxer? Looking like Trump is going to win 10-2, maybe 9-3. Okay, this is the fight. Yeah, well, 10-2. Geez, Shadow Boxer, you haven't got much faith in Kamala Harris, have you? 10-2. All right, that's in rounds. 9-3. Yeah, I'm thinking it might be a bit closer than that, Shadow Boxer. Maybe 7-5. I'm going to say for Trump. Anyway. Yep, Peter. All right, Garden Snake again. No fan base makes more excuses for a fighter than Mike Tyson. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, maybe there's a few out there like it, Garden Snake, but I don't sort of see it that way. I call it the way I see it. I just think it's really hard to assess Mike Tyson because we've just never seen the best of him. I can only go by what I've seen early in his career, and you got to remember, he was only, 23, 24 years of age when he lost to Buster Douglas. I mean, it's a baby for a heavyweight. It really is. And by that stage, it had probably 40 fights and 10 title defenses. So, yeah, I'm not sure it's excuses, Garden Snake. I think it's just stating the facts. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for the rest of his fan base, but I suppose my issue, Garden Snake, is that when people say, oh, he didn't fight anybody and they're all tomato cans and this and that, you can only fight who's there in front of you or around in the division when you're around. Larry Holmes copped it as well, but Larry Holmes is exactly the same. Cleaned out the division. Tyson cleaned out the division. Tyson Fury hasn't been able to do it. Joshua couldn't do it. Wilder couldn't do it. The Klitschko's sort of did it, but they had abysmal competition when they were champions. So I think it's not necessarily excuses, Garden Snake. It's just stating the facts. He literally beat every single fighter that was there to be beaten. And I think I did see the other day, I saw a list somewhere. I can't remember who brought it out, one publication, and they had might have been the top 10 heavyweights of the 80s and 90s. And I think Mike Tyson had beaten like 6 or 7 of them. And he was one of them, by the way. I reckon he'd beaten all but 1 or 2. I think one was Lennox Lewis and the other one might have been Riddick Bowe, one of those types of guys, but he obviously didn't get a chance to fight Riddick Bowe, but everyone else in the top 10 he'd beaten. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I can't speak for the rest of his fan base out there, but for me, just following his career growing up, he fought and beat every single fighter worth their salt at that time. And like a lot of heavyweights before him, yes, he suffered the Buster Douglas loss, but geez, a lot of fighters have suffered upsets during their career and still been revered and ranked as some of the greatest fighters of all time. I mean, Muhammad Ali, with Leon Spinks. I mean, does that really tarnish his legacy? I don't think so. I know it's towards the end of his career, but Chavez with Frankie Randall and Hector Camacho with Greg Haugen. I'm just sort of picking a few off the top of my head, but it happens. So anyway, that's your opinion. That's cool. What's that, Larry? I wanted Robert Kennedy, not King Kong Kamala or the Orange Man. Yeah, well, there's a lot of people out there, Larry, saying they wish they didn't have to really vote for either of them. And actually in America, they don't have to vote anyway, do they? So they've got the ability just to stay out of it. But I think it's going to be probably the biggest turnout in history of people voting for either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris because there's big stakes riding on it. All right, Andrew. Larry Campbell has to fight to his strengths. Good chin. Fitness has to be a volume fighter. Fill me in there, Andrew. Larry Campbell. Have I missed something here? Fill me in. I don't know a Larry Campbell. I might be having brain fog tonight, but I don't know who Larry Campbell is. I'm sorry. Tyson gets so many concessions made for him, if this, if that. Does he? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I've never really looked at it that way, Shadow Boxer. Yeah, I don't know. You're probably right. You and Snake, who was it? What was your name there? Garden Snake. With the supporters and fans defending him, but yeah, I don't know. I don't get into a lot of forums and chats and that sort of stuff, so I don't know. All I can just go by is my opinion, and that's my opinion anyway. All right, Glenn, we've got an anti-Trump one here. It's good. We've got both sides of it. Trump is going to start the biggest trade war ever. If you think the economy is ordinary now, wait to see what it's like if he wins. Yeah, that's an interesting... Look, I'm not probably in a position to comment too much on it, Glenn. All I would probably say in argument to that is by the figures from what I've seen is that, and I don't want to get in having a debate about Trump and Harris and everything on here. We're not here for that. But as far as I knew, the economy had never been better. Well, it was a lot better when Trump was in than what it is now. That's all I've heard, and that's all I'm going to say. We'll move on. And you got your opinion, Glenn, and that is perfectly fine. Let's move on. All right, Albie Mangles. As a bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games, what are your thoughts on his relevancy nowadays? Boxing is one sport where the competition across most countries is fierce. Your thoughts? Yeah, it's a good one. Thanks, Albie. Look, I don't think the Commonwealth Games as a whole is very relevant at all anymore, Albie, and that's probably been highlighted by the fact that they limited it to 10 sports at the next Games. I think the next step would be that it will be gone. Because when you look at it, it went from a full Commonwealth Games down to when they were going to put it in the regional areas of Victoria before they just gave it to Scotland, who are going to put on the Commonwealth Games for free, if you can get your head around that, and they've limited it to 10 sports, and boxing's part of it. So the Commonwealth Games as a whole, I don't think will be around for much longer, but the boxing competition amongst the Commonwealth countries, Albie, I think is still A1. I really do. I don't think amateur boxing has been or ever been any better than what it is now. Obviously, it should be with all the resources and backing the countries have these days and the money they spend on their teams across all different sports. So I think England, Canada, Australia, Ireland, I think South Africa and all that are in there as well. Scotland are all in there. So I don't think it's ever been any better as far as I said, the competition goes. So I think that's healthy, but I just think as a whole, the Commonwealth Games is shot. The Commonwealth itself is pretty much, it's deteriorated over the years as far as not just the games I'm talking about, but the Commonwealth in general. And I just don't think it has the same relevancy as it used to have, which is heartbreaking to me, Albie, because when I was boxing, it was obviously the Olympics, and then the Commonwealth Games was held just as highly as the Olympic Games, if you can believe that. I didn't really distinguish between the two of them. And as a youngster, I used to watch Olympics and Commonwealth Games. I used to wonder why the US and all that weren't in the Commonwealth Games, being a young fella, but I used to watch the Commonwealth Games just as keenly as I used to watch the Olympic Games, because we used to do a lot better in the Commonwealth Games. The Olympics would be, you're out, you're out, you're out. But the Commonwealth Games, you always did pretty well. But I really worry about the future of it now, Albie. I just can't see it hanging around. Maybe one more after this one, and then I think it'll be done. Glenn, I honestly think the Commonwealth Games are losing any relevance these days. Yeah, I'm with you there, Glenn. Yep, as I just said then, 147 really weak, says Andrew. All right, here we go. We've got our first super chat. Thank you, Andy, and $10. Thank you very much. I always wondered how this worked. So it says, hello, boxing fan. Geez, I must be behind because that came up about 10 minutes ago. Apologies about that. I think it did pop up on my screen here, and I should have clicked it when it was up, and it would have come up straight away. So, Andy, apologies if I didn't get it up straight away. Really appreciate the $10, mate. That'll be money well spent on one of my trips. Just my little contribution to the Deep Dive Appreciation Fund. Subscribe, share, and smash that like button, please, folks. I really appreciate that, Andrew or Andy. And, again, I didn't really get into this for the money, but I really appreciate that you give me $10 to put in the kitty. And it will be, as I said, money well spent. So next time I'll know, Andy, it'll pop up and I'll know to click it straight away and up you'll come. So thank you again. Oh, hang on. We've got another one there. What do we got? Oh, Damien. Wow. Great to see you have the super chats up now, mate. Your channel's absolutely fantastic. You're a great bloke. Keep the awesome content coming, legend. No, I really appreciate that, Damien. That means a lot, mate. And I really, again, appreciate it. It was at $30.99. Thank you. And I'm not quite sure what we'll do with the money, but it'll be money well spent there, mate. And it's people like you and everyone else that make the channel what it is. And it's a fair bit of work to do these things, the talking boxing, the walking boxing, and all the other stuff that we do, or I do. But I enjoy it, and it's my little contribution to the boxing media, mate. And I really appreciate you not only tuning in, but also the money you put in there. So thank you. All right, Mark, you will see Jin Sasaki on the Goodman card. He's a strong puncher, but not much defense, not ready for a belt yet. Now, is he the one that beat Camille Balamark? Was that him, or am I thinking of someone else? Fill me in. Sorry about that. Jeez, I better race through these comments here. We're an hour in, and I'm about half an hour behind. Just thank you again, guys, for the super chats. It's very much appreciated. It's great. All right, Jules. Spark is back. Wow, what a scoop. I guess if he was ever going to make a comeback, better to do it while he's still young. Spark versus Paro was the fight to make a few years ago. I think Steve can do well. Good call there, Jules. Maybe we might see Paro and Spark. Spark's going to have to do a lot, though, of course. Liam Paro is a world champion now, of course. So he's going to have to do a lot to get back. I'd be surprised if it happens. The only way I do see it happening, Jules, is if maybe Liam lost that world title and it might be a good comeback fight for him. I think Stevie's going to have to do a lot to get back in or get into the window to fight Liam Paro. Andy says, won't entertain Paro until he beats the fight in front of him. I won't count chickens before they hatch. Catterall has earned a title shot versus any 140-pound champ, though, in my opinion. Yep, 100% agree. Paro should get a fight at home as a world champion ASAP. I agree, Andy. I just think it comes down to the money. I just think there's too much money to be made overseas. I still don't understand why he's fighting in Puerto Rico. There's got to be a good reason behind it, but it doesn't make sense. Maybe the States would have made sense. England would have made sense, but, well, maybe not England because it's American fighting an Aussie, but it's got to be a good reason behind it, mate. Let's see if we can dig deeper and see what is happening there. Batman, how are you there, mate? Welcome to the show. Lee, says Andrew. Yeah, what a champion he was. Seeing the trailer for Tyson versus Paul countdown on Netflix was crazy. I did see that. Wouldn't you kill to see a guide intervention when Tyson enters the ring against Paul and is 20 years old? I would love to see it, Damien. And look, I have seen other YouTubers and podcasts out there. Oh, geez, did you see the footage of Mike Tyson? Oh, geez, Jake Paul's in a lot of trouble. Geez, he looks good. Guys, I would assume that boxing fans wouldn't be this gullible. Look, I might be wrong, and I wish more than anything that I'm going to be wrong. But the sparring partners they had him in there with, I mean, the 15 or 20 second clip they put up, guys, I don't want to break it to you if you're a Mike Tyson fan. He's not beating Jake Paul. It's just not going to happen. I would love for it I would love to be different. But guys, Jake Paul is, well, I was going to say he's going to stop Mike Tyson. Maybe they'll let it go 8 rounds because they want to maybe save Tyson's reputation just a little bit. But Jake Paul's not losing this fight. That's just it. And look, you got to remember Mike Tyson was an investor in Jake Paul early in his career. So maybe is there a script there that says that Tyson puts in a great performance, but Jake Paul gets the win? Tyson invests in him going forward and all's good. I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not implying fight fixing or anything. Or maybe I'm just saying this reminds me more of a WWE fight than a boxing fight, and that's why I'm staggered that it's an actual sanctioned fight, which shouldn't be the case, by the way. At 58 years of age, whether it be Mike Tyson or Mike Smith, a 58-year-old fighter should not be getting licensed in any state, no matter who you are. So, but yeah, as I said, guys, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but Tyson's not winning this fight. However, they're going to try their absolute best, Damien, to get us all to tune in with bated breath. Now, it's free, so of course we're going to, well, sort of free with our Netflix subscription. So we're all going to tune in. I will, make no doubt about it. I'll be there. But to bring out like a 24/7 type of trailer or series, oh my God, come on, what are we doing? And that probably works in more with the whole Netflix presentation sort of thing. Is it almost like a docu-series that ends with the fight at the end of it? Is it a Rocky Balboa type of situation where Mike Tyson puts up the fight of his life at his age, but Jake Paul still gets the win in a close fight? So Jake Paul moves on to bigger and better things. Tyson gets a payday. His legacy is somewhat intact. I don't know, but I don't want to see it. Now, yes, I will watch it, but I wish it wasn't happening. Mutsy, Spark was a clone of Katsitas under Brendan Smith. Do you know who the new coach is? No, I don't, Mutsy. I'm not sure whether it's actually been announced. I know maybe it was on Stevie's his social media that he was looking for someone, but I'm not sure that anyone's actually been announced yet. All right, Larry, I don't think people should put too much emphasis on the Tszyu fight. Something was off. Tszyu will be back. Let's hope so, Larry. Again, if I'm being honest, guys, I think it's a long way back for Tim because of the absolutely devastating circumstances of the fight. Again, I hope I'm wrong. At 29 years of age, yeah, he's got time. But just the way it happened, it's a long road back. That's all I'm saying, Larry. I'm with you. I hope he's back. It's going to be tough. It really will. Andy, I don't want to see Tyson get hurt, but would love it if Iron Mike knocks Jake Spark out. I'm with you, Andy. I 100% wish that myself. I just don't think it's going to happen. All right, Eminem, there's a good little doco about Tszyu Carrington. Yeah, of course, he's fighting Dana Cool on that card. Google Brownsville born. It tells of his upbringing, etc. Bit of a tearjerker. Actually, okay, thanks, Eminem. So what is it? Google Brownsville born. All right. Assuming, is it on YouTube or it's a podcast? I'm assuming it's on YouTube. That's awesome, mate. I will check that out. Unknown Samoan says he agrees. He just lost due to his own faults. That's it. Tim, yeah, that's it, mate. Exactly. Andrew Tyson, one last punch. Let's hope he's got one last punch in him there, Andrew. Batman says he definitely feels Tim overlooked Murtazaliev. Yeah, look, I just think the whole... I don't think Tim would have sat down and went, Bakram who? Look, we all know these bearded Chechen Russians are bad asses. They're just kicking the shit out of everyone at the moment all over the world, whether it be UFC or boxing. So you can't underestimate them. I just think a little bit like almost like a tornado or whatever it is, that everything's spinning around, and Tim and his team and his supporters and fans and everyone just got caught up in the funnel of the cyclone or tornado, whatever it is. And everyone forgot that there was Murtazaliev sitting in the eye of the storm just waiting for Tim, and everything's just swirling around. It's almost like when it started to subside, there was Murtazaliev with a wicked left hook and just ended it right there. That's just the way I think. It's just the easiest way for me to describe it. I just think Tim and everyone around him is almost like Murtazaliev didn't even exist. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we're looking back at Murtazaliev saying, geez, what a beast this guy is, and what was Tim thinking? No one said it before the fight. But it's just one of those things, and Tim wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. It's just happened. It's how he reacts now and how he gets back on track and back on the horse, and that's why I think it's important that he gets out of Australia, clears his mind, and really... if it's getting on a whiteboard, if that's what it's going to take, and really highlight what's important and what got him there in the first place, and start from scratch. That's the way it's going to happen for him. I don't like the narrative of maybe pushing him in there really quick. That whole thing about him fighting end of the year, which was still apparently on the table even after the Murtazaliev fight, of maybe putting him in there at the end of the year, just ludicrous, ridiculous. Should have been Tim. We'll see you at Easter. Okay, we'll have a chat about go off, do your thing. If you want to do a bit of training, that's great. We'll have a talk at March, April, around Easter, and then we'll see what's next for you. That's what should be said. Not putting him back in the ring 10 weeks after that fight. It is insane. But anyway, again, all will be revealed. All right, Unknown Samoan. It's sparring in the US. That's where he stays there to train. No sparring here. Not a large amount of quality anyway. No, there's not much at all for him here. And the thing is, Samoan, he needs to get out of here where he's not full of backslappers. The gyms with the backslappers and the yes men. Get over there, because the gym's over there. They don't care who you are. You go in there and you do your work. You put the work in like everyone else. Maybe going to Mayweather's gym and getting in, the doghouse, whatever it is, that's type of environment where no one cares who you are or who your dad is or what sort of profile you've got here in Australia. You're one of the boys and you get in there and you put in the work. That's what he needs. And he needs a trainer with the same mentality. So that's just my personal thoughts anyway. And obviously he's got a great relationship with his uncle Igor, and I'm nothing against Uncle Igor. It's the fact that sometimes you need a change in order to reset. You see it with footy clubs all the time. Hey, the coach and the players all get along, but guess what? We need change to go forward. We're cutting the coach and we're moving on. We're getting someone else in and let's reinvent this and go again. Tim's got to do the same thing, in my opinion. And I don't want to be seen as laying the boots into Uncle Igor, just him solely, but there has to be some change. And whether it's not just Uncle Igor, maybe it's the whole team has to go. Not outside the rings. I think they've done a great job with Glenn Jennings and No Limit, but inside the ring, I think he just needs to start again with a brand new team. We can wish Andrew. What was that? We can wish Unknown Samoan. I hope Tyson sleeps him. I'm with you. All right, Flash Wilson. I just started watching. You just watched a short reel via Jai of Tim hitting the bag in Sydney from either yesterday or today. Okay, so he's back. Okay, that's cool. That's awesome, and that's probably what he should do. Just start to turn the knuckles over a little bit now, but just stay away from the press and everyone else, and just get your head together. With Tim, he was great until he got dropped, of course. Might just be a mental problem. Yeah, well, Andrew, the look on his face, go back and watch the fight. The look on Tim's face after one of the knockdowns, or maybe even all the knockdowns, was like, mate, what are you doing? He almost had a pissed off look on his face where I think he knew he was in trouble. I think he knew he couldn't recover. I think he knew the fight was over, and he looked pissed. So maybe it was just as much of a shock for him as it was for us. And that's why I say it's a mental thing where physically he'll be okay, but he just needs to get himself right mentally. And is it a problem? Maybe. But we're not going to know that until the next fight, which is why I think the Zarafa fight is a bad idea. Don't worry about Zarafa yet. He's going to be dangerous. I think a prime Tim would make mincemeat out of Michael Zarafa, but in this instance, Tim's gonna, it's just a human, it's just a natural thing that he's gonna have some mental scars. And Michael Zarafa is going to be walking tall. He's going to be super confident he can get Tim out of there, more confident than he's ever been. So why do the fight? Get a couple of even maybe even if it's just one of a guy that's well known, a journeyman but not a puncher, who you can get maybe a good 6, 7, 8 rounds, or maybe even go the distance, and then go into a Michael Zarafa fight. It just makes no sense to me, apart from financial, that he takes a Zarafa fight next. What's that, Bill? I'll jump for joy if Tyson floors him and ends him. You or me both, Bill. Where did you hear the Tim Costa argument rumour? Is there any credibility to the claim? I've had a few people message me and say, did you see it, Jules? I didn't see it. All I can think of is when Costa whispered in his ear, and you can sort of, the look on Tim's face was a little bit like, Dad, not now. That's the sort of look he sort of gave him. I don't know whether they've perceived that as being an argument, but I reckon I had 3, if not 4 people, they call it DM me or message me or whatever it is, and say, did you see the argument between Tim and Costa? So, no, I didn't see it, but I'm just going by what people have told me. Exactly, Big J. That's what I said. Riddick Bowe never fought Tyson. So out of that top 10, apart from Tyson himself, Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe, Tyson had beaten all the other top 10s. Andrew, I'm with you, mate. My dream as well. Paul is iced. Jeez, it'd be great if he iced him. I hope it happens, Andrew. I don't want to sort of pour cold waters on everyone's hopes. I just think the way I think it's going to go is that it'll be a Rocky Balboa type of thing, if you ask me, in Rocky 6, where he puts up a great performance, everyone applauds him out, and what a great champion he was, and Jake Paul loses no face either, as does Mike Tyson, and it's a win-win across everything. So that's the way I see it anyway. Yeah, Daniel, that's what I said. Same could be said about Ali. We never saw the best of him either, 100%. Both fighters, isn't it ironic? Both fighters, the best 3 years of their career, we never saw. Glenn says Bone Crusher went 12 with Tyson as well, and he was hardly a world beater. The problem is, though, Glenn, you're forgetting that Bone Crusher didn't try and fight. He boxed and moved the whole fight, did not engage with Tyson at all until the last probably 5 seconds of the fight. So that's probably where... And look, Glenn, a lot of, whether it be Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, whoever, a lot of those guys did also struggle with lesser lights. I mean, Muhammad Ali went 15 rounds with Chuck Wepner. Chuck Wepner was a glorified club fighter. So, you know what I mean? I'm not, again, we just seem to be butting heads tonight with Glenn, unfortunately. But I get what you're saying there. But the fact that Bone Crusher did not try and engage Tyson for 11 rounds and 50 seconds I don't think we can use that argument. I think if he had tried to trade with Mike Tyson, it would have been all over in about 2 rounds. But pretty hard to get the job done when your opponent doesn't want to fight and clinches and holds and wrestles every chance they get. Andrew says, yes, we did. Nobody could have beaten the Ali who beat Sonny Liston in 64. But he was only 24 years of age, though, Andrew. Same age as what Tyson was when he beat Trevor Berbick. When he lost to Douglas, he was 24. And when Ali beat Liston, he was 24. So, yeah, it's, again, for a heavyweight, 28, 29, 30, sort of the years where you're sort of going into your peaks. And neither one of them even hit their peak. It's just amazing to think that 2 of the greatest heavyweights of all time, we missed the best 3 years of their careers. So lots may disagree. I don't believe Ali ever beats big George Foreman. In my opinion, George had a bad day at that fight. No disrespect to the great Ali. I've got to disagree with you a bit there, Bill. You can't. The what-ifs, I know we can have a lot of what-ifs out there in certain circumstances. But at the end of the day, George Foreman was at his absolute peak when he fought Ali. He just fought a stupid fight, and Ali fought the perfect fight, the perfect strategy in what he put into practice that night. And yes, it mightn't have been great for him down the track with the amount of punishment he took in fights like that, and a lot of fights like that later in his career. But I just don't think you can discredit Ali's win over Big George, Bill. I just think he fought the perfect fight. George fought a bad fight. And look, who knows? They might have fought again. If they did fight again, it might have been a different story. George mightn't have punched himself out the way he did. I don't think it would have been the case. I think George probably would have fought the same way. I don't know. Lots of things happen, and that's one of the greatest wins of all time, Bill. I don't really want to disrespect Ali by saying George has had a bad night. I just think Ali had the greatest night of his career and should get the credit for it. Damien, did you end up getting the Undisputed game? No, I haven't yet, mate. I pre-ordered the PlayStation 5 Pro so I can play it. If you live stream some games, we should do a little video tournament. Okay, well, I don't know how to do that, but my kids will, Damien. They do all that sort of stuff. So, but I haven't seen it yet, mate. So do you have to send away for it, or can you walk into a shop and buy it? Let me know. But am I too old? I'm 50 years old, Damien. I shouldn't be playing video games, should I? Yes, Andrew. Ali loves sluggers. He certainly did, mate. Peak Ali was probably the version that beat Williams. Yeah, Cleveland Williams. Yeah, Glenn. Yeah, yep. Like when he was at that time, when he had that little stretch there, didn't he? After he beat Liston. I mean, you throw in Floyd Patterson and Terrell, Cleveland Williams, Terrell, what's his name? Who was the guy? Was Cleveland Williams the one he said, what's my name? Was that him? There's a lot of different ones out there anyway. But he cleaned out what was there. It wasn't the deepest talent pool at the time, but like Larry Holmes and Mike Tyson cleaned out all that was in front of him. So, but yeah, that maybe was the peak, Glenn. He would have been, 25, 26 around that time, I think. So you might be right. Yeah, he was bloody amazing. No denying that. All right, Garden Snake. Ali beat all the power punchers. Liston, Foreman, Lyle, Shavers, Prime Ali and Prime Holmes beat any Foreman just by outclassing him. We saw Jimmy Young give George a boxing lesson. Yeah, it's great to have all these different takes. You could probably make an argument that maybe George, he had the spiritual thing afterwards because he was so dehydrated, whether that played a factor or maybe underestimated Jimmy Young. And see, this is another example. We can't bring down, or we don't bring down George's legacy because he lost to Jimmy Young. That's why I say we don't bring down Tyson's legacy because he lost to Buster Douglas. It's just one of those things that happen. Same as Ali losing to Ken Norton at the time, or a Leon Spinks. I know Ken Norton ended up being another heavyweight great, but at the time he was pretty much an unknown as well. So I don't know. I just think every fighter is entitled to a mulligan or two. I don't think it affects their legacy. All right, Atlas and Mike is interesting, says Jules. Teddy's hurt was Cuss choosing Mike and banishing Teddy from the gym. Yeah, that's right, he did too. Cuss was desperate to win a heavyweight title before dying and ignored Mike's bad behaviour. That is a fact, Jules, and I think all concerned agree with that Mike pretty much got away with murder. Mike is an icon and a legend for overcoming what he has outside the ring. Well, talk about reinventing himself, Jules. This is a guy, of course, went to prison, lost all his money. He's on the scrap heap, written off, and reinvented himself. Became a movie star, if you will. Got into the pot. What is it? The cannabis. Excuse me, the cannabis industry. Had some charity fights, and now he's got podcasts and all that sort of stuff. And now, again, he's a multi-millionaire. So it's great to see, Jules. A great story of redemption. Yeah, only Smoking Joe got him off a layoff. Yeah, he did, Andrew. He should have had another couple of fights, I think, Muhammad Ali. Mike was mentally fragile and the ultimate front runner. I'll agree that he was mentally fragile, Garden Snake, and the front runner. Well, yeah, he was a front runner. And look, I'm not going to back away from the fact he probably was a bully and probably got what was coming to him a few times. But again, Garden Snake, you just can't deny the guy. Look, I don't know what the difference is between what Mike Tyson did to what Ali did in that era. Larry Holmes and the Klitschko's, they cleaned out the division. You can only clean out who was in front of you or in the division when you're there. And Mike Tyson did it. And in the space of, was it a year? He beat Berbick in, November of 86. He then beat Bone Crusher, I think, in March of 87. Then fought Pinkland Thomas, I think, a couple of months later in defense of the WBA and WBC. Then fought Tony Tucker a couple of months after that to unify, and then fought Tyrell Biggs, the Olympic gold medalist, at the end of the year. Then backed up a couple of months later to beat Tony Tubbs, and then backed up again a couple of months later to beat Larry Holmes. I mean, this is stuff you don't see fighters do these days, and just one after the other, knocked them over, one after the other. So I understand you might not necessarily be a Mike Tyson fan, and you got your reasons. That's cool, same as Glenn. I'm just saying, I think you just been, a lot of fans are a little bit hard on Mike, especially early in his career. And I just think he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, purely based on those first, or up until the Buster Douglas fight. Unknown Samoan. That's how people are treating Jai at the moment, complaining that he's beating up the lesser opponents. But who else is there? Nobody coming forward. Well, I think Jai will just keep doing what he's doing there, mate. He'll just keep bowling him over until he gets a unification fight. And if he doesn't, then he will go up to heavyweight, and that's where we'll see the big fights with Jai Opetaia and the big dollars. Bill says he's a fanboy. Jeff Fennick or Tyson do no wrong in my eyes. I'm a little bit the same there, Bill. I don't think it's the Albie Mangles, Andrew. All right, Hanoi Tripper says Garden Snake must eat been bitten by a snake regarding his opinion on Iron Mike. Yeah, he's not a fan. That's cool. We've all got different opinions. Larry, what's that? Any reason you didn't try going pro, Lynden? I saw some of your other fights out of curiosity. You had great timing and slick as can be. Thought you would have done well as a pro, mate. Well, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that, mate. Look, it's a hard question to answer. I get asked it all the time, Larry, and I could probably go into more detail. But at the end of the day, mate, I think I just turned 25, and to me that was old. It's nothing. Of course, I probably hadn't even hit my peak at that stage. I think I turned 25 a month or two before the Commonwealth Games. But mate, turned 25. I was getting married at the end of that year, going into business, and I just had something else to top my priority list, mate. And I almost did it. I spoke to Jeff Fennick about going pro after the Commonwealth Games, but mate, my heart wasn't in it 100%, so I didn't do it. So pretty hard when you see a lot of your teammates or ex-opponents or just fighters around your era that I think I had covered that have gone on to bigger things. But no regrets from this end, Larry. No regrets at all, mate. I'll go into it in detail one day. All right, Shadow Boxer. I respect Mike Tyson, but he really does get endless excuses. If Cuss hadn't died, if he hadn't married Givens, he had stayed focused. Part of being an all-time great is staying the course and being consistent. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Oh, Mark says this is was it Solinsky? Beat Bella on the Doheny card. Yep, that's right. All right, Larry, if let's say a fighter with a certain name like Jai moves up to Bridgerweight, could it give some shine to that division? I know he isn't there yet, but still interesting. I don't think he would go to Bridgerweight, Larry. I think he'll go straight to heavyweight. Not much going on at Bridgerweight. I did see that Chris Travesky, the Aussie, the one that beat Paul Gatlin's fighting Tyson Pedro for the international Bridgerweight belt, Liam. So there's only about 20 Bridgerweights in the world, but we've got world titles and regional titles now. So I think I'm exaggerating. I think there's a lot more than 20, but you get what I'm saying. But as far as Jai, I think if Jai did go up to Bridgerweight, it would definitely get a lot more attention. But who else is there to fight? Maybe a Coley, although he's going to heavyweight, I think, isn't he? Or Riapor, I don't know, but possibly. The Paul Tyson fight is just a sparring exhibition, not a real fight, pure WWE. Yeah, well, it's billed as a proper fight, but I think we all know that it's going to be a glorified exhibition, Larry. And he says to unify the three majors of the time in WBC, WBA and IBF to achieve heavyweight undisputed warrants respect for Iron Mike was my first favourite, but out of my top 5 accomplishments-based all-time heavyweights list. That's what I'm getting at, Andy, and he did it one after the other. He 3 out of 4 fights, one after the other, he unified and then beat. Well, what did he have? So he fought in November of '86 up until was it 88 when he beat Spinks, which was June of '88. So in the space of a year and about 8 months or 9 months, he had 8 fights. 8 fights in the space of a year and 8 months. That is just, and unified the heavyweight title in that time. So I'm with you, and I'm just telling it the way it is. Doesn't mean you have to be a Mike Tyson fan, but I think you've got to acknowledge that to do that was an unbelievable feat, and he's got to be ranked in the top heavyweights of all time. Too much airtime on Paul and Tyson. Crap, says Bill. Yep, well, let's move on. I'm sorry. What's that? Big J, all right? Tyson's a scumbag, and I hope Jake Paul is a dickhead because Tyson's fan fight craps. Okay, well, that's your opinion there, Big J. That's fine. Talking boxing, walking boxing, my weekly fix of the best boxing news. It's shows like this that remind us to be proud Australians. Keep up the great work. That's from Motorsport. Thanks, Motorsport. I wasn't quite sure how the walking boxing would be received, to be honest. I sort of got the idea of just, well, when I'm out on my walks with little Neil, I'm out there for an hour or whatever it might be, and all the time I'm thinking about boxing or footy or something. Most of the time it's boxing and watching all the shows and thinking about it. I'm thinking, sort of daydreaming as I'm walking along, and I'm thinking, well, it's one thing to put up your little stories on Instagram and all that sort of stuff, but I just thought, while I'm walking, I might as well just give my thoughts on what's been happening in the last 24 hours, and it's probably been the best received show that I've done. So, I really enjoy it, mate. And one thing on the walking boxing, we will go right through, by the way, over the whole Christmas, New Year and period, that really in-between period of Usyk and Fury and, when the big fights start again. Well, actually, they'll come around pretty quick with Benavidez and Morrell at the end of January. But what I'm probably going to do is I get a little bit what someone said before about going pro and all that sort of stuff. What I'm sort of planning, and I haven't decided 100% yet, but what I was maybe looking at is to have that sort of downtime of probably going into my 40 years of boxing. And there's really no rhythm or rhyme or whatever it is to the topics of walking boxing. But one thing I sort of thought I'd do is have that month or 6 weeks, whatever it is, in between, or that gap period between Usyk and Fury and probably Benavidez and Morrell, is to go through different things of my 40 years in boxing, whether it be my career or trips I've taken, some experiences, some funny stories, in promoting as well, managing, training, all different stories of my journey in 40 years of boxing to let you guys in on some of the behind-the-scenes sort of stuff, because I get asked all the time different things. So I thought I might use the 15 or 20 minutes of a morning just to give you, as I said, it might be a funny story about what's happening along the time. It might be a story that no one's ever heard about a particular fighter that you know now. It might be, as I said, promoting story, or a training story, or some of my own stories about how I started and some of the things I've experienced over 40 years. But so I suppose what I'm saying is there'll be plenty of content to keep you occupied over that sort of 6 to 8 week sort of black hole that will be in between the boxing sort of season ending and starting again. All right, Larry, let me know what you think about that too, by the way, guys, whether it's something you want to hear. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have to watch it, but if you do like content a little bit like that, and you want to hear some stories, and that's what will be happening. All right, Larry, just saw that 140-pound champ Puello was fighting Sandor Martin, of all people. Weird fight? That is a weird fight. Okay, so he's booked in. So the Valenzuela Cruz fight you would think would happen, the rematch. That leaves Teofimo Lopez as the only one without a fight, so maybe he looks at that. Although Lopez has beaten Martin, hasn't he? So, yeah, it is a weird fight. But so anyway, at least we're getting some great fights at 140 anyway, Larry. Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it there, mate. Andy says, Tszyu can climb again if dedicated, in my opinion. Was overconfident and got caught trying to make a statement, but the way people act like Tim should retire is just ridiculous. Many have failed and succeeded before. Mate, agree. I don't think he should retire. That's ridiculous for people saying that. I'm with you, though. As I said before, he just got caught, but I do stand by it's going to be a long road back. He can do it, make no mistake, but it's going to be a long road back, and let's just see whether he's got what it takes to get there. Pound for pound king, how are you there, mate? Peter Nutt, pure and simple. Tszyu got reckless and looked past his opponent and paid the penalty. Yep, that's it, Peter. Agree. I watched some of Barkram sparring and thought, shit, this guy looks tough. He was always going to be tough motorsport, but I just didn't expect what we got. Jules says, Chris Algieri made an interesting comment about Bakaram. He asked, where did this guy come from, and tapped his head. Sounded like he was suggesting foul play. Did you catch that thought? I did see all those pro box things, Jules, and I must have missed that. Yeah, where did this guy come from? Okay, I'm not quite sure about that. I didn't see it, Jules, but I might go back and... They covered it last week, didn't they, a couple of times, the pro box guy, so I'll go back and check it out. Yeah, Jules, that is right. Apparently, Bakram broke his hand a week out from the fight too. Yep, that's correct. No to back slappers, says Andrew. I agree. Oh, okay, so it wasn't his hand. His knuckle on his little finger is pushed inwards. Okay. Tszyu didn't listen to his corner, says Peter, and showed them zero respect, and that's why he needs a new trainer, maybe an American trainer. Yep, I agree, Peter. He just needs something just to change things up a little bit, and just maybe take him out of his comfort zone a little bit, and just to give him a little bit of a kickstart. Peter says his dream fight is Usyk Opetaia at cruiserweight. Opetaia beats him. Wow, that's a big statement, Peter. Geez, it would be a great fight, though. I'm just going to say, though, I'm going to put the brakes on that just a little bit at the moment, because I've probably got a little bit of the Tszyu PTSD on that, Peter. Tim's level of opponents were okay, but they weren't at the absolute elite level. Now, I know Jai's a little bit different with the Breeders fight, but Breeders was, 30... Was he late 30s, whatever it was? I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that would be the case, because I want to see Opetaia fight a Billum Smith or a Ramirez first, or someone like that, just to back up my feelings about Jai, and that he is the real deal. But I want to see him within a real elite cruiserweight, and then I might agree with what you got to say about him beating Usyk at cruiser. Larry says, I'm not going to go there, but let's just say Tim won't be making those types of amateur mistakes in his next fight. Yep. We all get humbled at some stage, Larry, and sometimes it's the best way to learn is for that to happen. And I think if he can come back mentally, I think it'll do him. That loss will maybe bring him back in the line and think, okay, well, maybe it's not just all going to happen for me. I've got to really focus and concentrate and get back to what got me here in the first place. And that's my fascination with it all, Larry, whether he can do it or not, because it's all the ball is in his court, whether he can do it. And I'm fascinated to see whether he can actually, jump those hurdles and get back to where he was. Yeah, Bill, Ali did go the distance with Bugner twice. Yep. And he says, whole team Tszyu responsible, be confident and erase doubt, but don't be overconfident and prepare for every scenario, including if he gets caught. Have a survival plan to hold or take a knee if you have to. Yeah, that was one of the criticisms I had, Andy. He had no idea or the unwillingness to hold or clinch or just do whatever it took to stay, to give himself 10 seconds here or there. Yep, Chuck Wepner, the real Rocky, he is, yep. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was based off the fight with Ali. Yep, that's right, Big J. Cal Jane Hartman. We'll just call you Cal. Think Tim should go with Dad 4 to 6, 8 months. Sorry, was for 4 to 6, 8 months. Dad said 10 rounds of last fight. Not sure if head clash plays a part. I don't think the head clash played any part at all, Cal. That a lot was made of that. It was a little bump. It wasn't even really a head clash. It was a little bump. And Tim did what any fighter would do in the same circumstances. A natural thing was to quickly check his head for a cut. So I haven't bought into any of that it brought back any PTSD or any bad feelings or affected him mentally. They butted heads or bumped heads. Tim checked his head, no blood, and we moved on. So that's why I see it anyway. But definitely they really banged heads and maybe there was a nick or a bit of swelling or maybe even a small cut, who knows. But it was a little bump. So I don't sort of buy into that. James Tillis in 1986 had no problem engaging with Mike. In fact, it went to decision, 6-4 on the judges' scorecards. Mitch Green and James Smith, C-level guys, all went the distance with Mike and the 80s. Well, I'm not sure what the relevance is to that, Garden Snake. All the best fighters in the world have all fought the quick Tillises and Mitch Greens and those types of guys. That's how you get your rounds in. I don't remember the judges being the scorecards either, by the way. It's got the best of me now. I'm going to go back and check. But that's good management, Garden Snake. Putting me in with James. And no one stopped James Tillis, by the way. No one. He fought every single elite heavyweight of his era, and no one stopped him. And Mitch Green, probably similar. And Bone Crusher. Larry Holmes stopped him on a cut eye, and that was about it. So, yeah, I mean, you need these fights to progress. We had a 20 or 19 or 20-year-old Mike Tyson, and you're giving him a hard time because he went the distance with Quick Tillis and Mitch Green. Come on, Garden Snake. That's grasping a bit there, mate. Let's have a look. Mike Tyson. I've got to see the scorecards. 1986. Mitch Green. James Tillis. You are right. There was a 6-4 and the others were 8-2. Okay, so there was a 6-4 in there. Mitch Green, 9-1, 8-2, 9-1. So, look, James Tillis performed really well, but I mean, at the time, was he 31-8? But he'd been in there with so many good fighters. Just trying to see who. So he'd been in there with, where was it? I'll go back to when before he fought. He'd been in there with Tyrell Biggs, Jerry Coetzee, Marvis Fraser, Carl the Truth Williams. Where was it? Tim Witherspoon. He'd been in Greg Page, Pinklin Thomas, Ernie Shavers, Mike Weaver. And none of them had stopped him. Actually got stopped by Thomas, Pinklin Thomas. I'll take that back. So, geez, you got to give him a bit of leeway there, Garden Snake. I understand. I'm not. No, it's your decision. It's your prerogative. But geez, you're a bit tough on a 19-year-old kid because he went the distance with a guy who had 39 fights when he fought him. Anyway, all right, Garden Snake. What else you got there? Mike Tyson. With Mike Tyson, people say a blown up light heavyweight in Spinks beat Holmes twice and Mike beat both of them. Holmes was 38 and 2 years inactive when he fought Tyson, but he doesn't get the excuse. Hang on, Garden Snake. After Mike knocked him out in 4 rounds, he went on the fight Evander Holyfield and went 12 rounds with Holyfield. He beat Ray Mercer. Geez, you're being a bit hard on Mike Tyson. Tyson blew Larry Holmes away in 4 rounds. I know he'd been inactive, but geez, after Mike knocked him out, he went 12 rounds with Evander Holyfield and beat Ray Mercer. I don't get that. And Mike Tyson, well, you say about him being a blown-up light heavyweight. Well, Mike did exactly what he should have done against a blown-up light heavyweight and got him out of there in 90 seconds. I'm not sure how you can be criticising Mike for knocking out Spinks in 90 seconds. He did exactly what he should have done. Anyway, your call. I get it. Jake the Snake. Or the Cut Snake. There was a half-decent Chuck Wepner movie a few years ago. I think it was called Chuck. And there's another one now, Jake. I think it's called The Bleeder. I think it is. That is a new movie on him as well. That's out. I think I saw that on one of the streaming platforms. All right, Larry, fun fact. Lynden versus Ali fight was fixed. And even Spinks versus Ali was under investigation by the feds since someone from Spinks' camp told them it would be fixed, but they never had enough evidence. I've never heard that, Larry, but... if that is true, that is amazing. Mike Tyson cult members is what I call them. Yeah, a bit rough on, I think, Mike Tyson, Garden Snake. I get it, you're not a fan. I just don't see... And look, I totally get if you're saying that, look, well, Mike Tyson's not in the league, either Joe Louis or Muhammad Ali or these types of guys. I get that. I agree with it. But you've got to give the guy his due. Jeez, I'm not sure what else he could have done. Fair dinkum. All right, Larry. Allegedly, both of the Spinks fights were fixed. A lot of Ali's late career is a bit murky, sadly, how it is. Yeah, well, okay, that's news to me again, mate. Andy says, one can only beat the best available at the moment, and Mike did that to achieve undisputed heavyweight. I agree. What's that, Andrew? When he presses, you don't just know about the modern fighters, you know the history. Davis, for me, the best of his era. Well, I just remember, Andrew, when I was a kid, I was born in, 73, 74, whatever it was, and I remember when I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old or whatever. I think I've told this story in here before. This is before the days, obviously, of internet or even getting fights here in Australia. We got not a lot. We all had to have the magazines, and I got my 6, 7, 8 magazines a month, and I would read them for the whole month. I knew everything that was going on in the boxing world back then. And that's just, I was just obsessed with it, Andrew, and that's probably why I know a fair bit about back in that era. Batman, those are fan excuses. Mike never said any of that. Really good point, Batman. Mike Tyson's never said I'm this or I'm that. If anything, he's actually disregarded a lot of what he's done in his career as just what do they call it, or not relevant. I think he said to his belts, these are just worthless to me. They mean nothing. So yeah, I think those people are probably more. Yeah, it's more aimed at the fans, not Mike himself. Mike's probably one of the most humblest guys you've ever seen in boxing, and I think he realises where he stands in the scheme of things, which again is why I don't want to see him fight Jake Paul. But anyway, all right, still with Garden Snake. I once had a Mike Tyson fan tell me his peak prime was from the 86. Yep, the Berbick fight to June 17th, 1989. Well, that was the Carl Williams fight. He's got a point, Garden Snake. Look, again, I'm not part of that little cult you're talking about there, but that November 22nd, 86 fight was Trevor Berbick, which is when he won the title. The June 17th fight was Carl the Truth Williams, and he's probably 100% right, Garden Snake, because his next fight after that Carl Williams fight was the Douglas fight in, I think it was February 1990. And that was the longest break he'd ever had in his pro career, which was 8 months. And you could see he wasn't prepared mentally or physically for Buster Douglas. And he's probably dead right there, mate. He's 100% right. That is when Mike Tyson was absolutely at his peak. And how young he was. So in 89, he would have been 23, just about to turn 23 years of age. So your mate's right, Garden Snake. That was the peak of his career. What's this, Bill? Would it be possible for you to do a career night? Maybe have an old trainer, even sparring partner on as well? I would definitely watch it. Oh, I've never thought of that, Bill. Yeah, we could probably look at that. Would you want to see that, though? I'm happy to do it if you wanted to. I'm not really one that likes to get on here and talk about myself too much. But, mate, if you wanted to hear me a little bit more insight on my career, happy to do it, mate. All right, Garden Sake, you see fans destroy Tank and guys who do criminal behaviour, and I'm good with that, but they love Mike. Teddy Atlas's niece, Robin Givens, and Desiree Washington, everybody is a liar but Mike. Yeah, no, look, I don't think anyone's, even like I'm a Mike Tyson fan, but I'm certainly not saying during his life he wasn't a bad person at a couple of different stages, Garden Snake. I don't think anyone's ever really, as far as I know, have disregarded what he did. But you got to also remember, a lot of it's hearsay. We don't know. I mean, the Teddy Atlas thing, I think it has been proven that it was the case. I mean, Teddy Atlas put the gun in his mouth because of what his niece told him at the time or what he'd heard. Robin Givens, well, she was just a proven liar as well. And Desiree Washington, well, we just don't know. It's his word versus her word. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not saying he was an angel, but just to say that he was guilty on all accounts there, just because of word of mouth. Yeah, I just think you're being a bit hard on him anyway, mate. Anyway. All right, Andy, I picked Lennox on your poll. On Batman's poll. Lennox is most complete fighter and would have been able to compete in any era. Yeah, very underrated is Lennox in some quarters, I think, anyway. Very good heavyweight in the history of boxing. Convicted rapist, shadow boxer, but again, word against word. I'm not saying he didn't do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying it was her word against his word. And that's all I'm saying. But you're right. He was convicted. So I suppose we move on. All right. Jules, speaking of Paulo Akuso versus Waterman on how do you pronounce it? Turzewski? That's actually a great matchup and a relief for all us shameless Akuso fans. Yeah, looking forward to it. Jules, can't wait, mate. Larry says, a person don't believe he was a rapist. This is Mike Tyson. I think it was some sort of setup, and that woman was looking for getting all the money she could and run. Mike's not a great guy, but don't think he's a rapist. Yeah, well, again, it's all different sides of the argument. Jules, I really like Paulo Akuso's energy at the presser, brash and disrespectful in a PG-13 kind of way. Great to see him back. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it too, Jules. I agree. Don't know, Canelo and Tank fans are something else. Yeah, well, Canelo fans are a little bit that way as well. Popular fighters have most fans, so therefore have most fanboys with most excuses. Well, look, you just got to look at the Mayweather and Pacquiao fans too, Andy. Like Manny, like a great fighter. I love Manny, but geez, you know, he gets a lot of the fanboys as well, as does Mayweather, as does Canelo. Look, as does De La Hoya, as does Chavez. They all do. I just think they've got passionate fans, and I suppose if you're with the fan group, then it's all good. If you disagree, well, then you call them a cult, whatever. I just think every great fighter has a very dedicated fan base, and each to their own. They can have their own opinions. I'll go down the comments there. Jack, let's not underestimate Waterman versus Akuso. Saw Waterman knock out Pampalone in the amateurs with one left hook. Okay, I didn't know that, Jack. I think Akuso will get the win. I'm not sure it'll be in 2 rounds like Akuso said it might be. But look, it'll be a good fight, tough fight. I think Akuso's got more than enough for Clay Waterman, even though it should be a great fight, as I've said. All right, Andy. Jai has to unify. Has to build his resume, but it's a matter of if the other champs are willing. Jai fans and platforms need to push the conversation. I'm with you there, Andy. Will Jai definitely fight Sin Cara next as he's mandatory? I think so, actually, man. Yep, I think so. I don't think he'll want to repeat what happened with the Breeders' situation. I think he'll fight him. Bill and Smith versus Zerto will give us a lot of answers, both on who's the next opponent for Jai, but also about the level he has to perform at to become undisputed. I think Zerto beats CBS in a close fight. Okay, it's got some merit there, Larry. I would have probably thought maybe Bill and Smith, but if Zerto wins, certainly not an upset. All right, we'll keep going. Got a few to get through. The Algeri comment was made on his other podcast, Inside Boxing Live. Is that where he does it with that other guy? Will Tim Tszyu ever return to the top? I did watch the one after the Tim Tszyu fight, Jules. I'm assuming that's it. So I didn't see it, but I'll go back and check it out. I know you guys are discussing the Tyson thing in the chat there. That's cool. That's good. What do you got to say there, Jules? It's a great point. Mike was doing it at 20 years of age. Yeah, we have elite 25-year-olds can't even fight 10 rounds. Yeah, exactly. But that's cool. You can all have your say. All right, we'll keep moving down. You guys have, that's cool. All right, Larry. Sonny Liston, the most controversial character in perhaps all of boxing. Many believe he was killed because he didn't want to take a dive to Chuck Wepner. Liston was a ferocious fighter. Unfortunately, we just never seen the best of him, Larry. And I mean, apart from those 2 wins over Floyd Patterson, never really had a signature win, did he? And this is why I've always had the argument with not putting Sonny Liston in my all-time top 10. I mean, apart from Floyd Patterson, who did he beat? Same as Rocky Marciano. He's probably on the fringe. I don't want to get into the whole Rocky thing because you talk about with Mike Tyson thing. Geez, you never want to say a bad word about Rocky Marciano, but the facts are never had a real signature win. Ezra Charles, Joe Lewis, Joe Walcott, and Archie Moore were all well and truly over the hill, and he struggled with all of them. So. And they've got him ranked at, in the top 10, a lot of people saying he'd beat Ali and Foreman and Tyson. Give me a break. Garden Snake, what do you think of Rocky Marciano? You're having a crack at, you could not possibly have a crack at Mike Tyson and defend the record of Rocky Marciano, surely. Because that loses all credibility in my opinion. But anyway, I don't want to upset the Rocky fans out there because there's a lot of them. Anyway, all right. Mark Wynn, yes, thank you, mate. What's all this blasphemy against Iron Mike? A legend in my book. I'm with you, Mark, 100%. All right, Batman, this Jake Paul Tyson show still going ahead. It's absolutely disgusting. Shame on anyone involved in putting it together. Couldn't have said it any better. Batman, I agree 100%. Yes, Andy? Yep, Pac-Man fans are off the chain too. Exactly. Well, he also lost a lot of fights, Garden Snake. So anyway, I'm sure you guys can speak amongst yourself. It gives me an opportunity to go down the comments a bit. All right, Alan, that's cool. One last thing on that. You can the Tyson, you can only beat what's in front of you. The argument doesn't stand up, in my opinion. He fought some average and old fighters, cannot be compared with many heavyweight boxers in 60s, 70s, and 90s. That's cool, but you've got to put that rationale across everyone, Alan. If that's the case, you've got to put it across Rocky Marciano. You could even put it against Joe Louis, Alan, and I know that is absolute sacrilege, but Joe Louis didn't really have that level of competition either. And he got knocked out by Max Schmeling, who wasn't known as one of the greatest fighters of all time either. The Klitschko's had zero to beat in their time at the top, but I would still have all, like especially Joe Louis and the Klitschko's would have to still be ranked highly as far as those all-time greats go. But you've got to apply the same rationale to those guys as you do to Tyson. That's all I'm saying. If it's purely based on the level of talent you've got at your disposal to fight, well, I think you've got to put a line through Joe Louis and the Klitschko's and Rocky Marciano right off the bat as well. So the people out there having heart palpitations at the moment say, oh my God, how could you possibly say that about Rocky Marciano and Joe Louis? But I'm just saying that rationale applies to what you just said then. Tyson, like Joe Louis, cleaned out the division. And Joe Louis is ranked arguably the first or second greatest heavyweight of all time. And he had 25 defenses or whatever it was. Go back and look at a lot of the records of the guys he was fighting and the resumes and all that sort of stuff. Very, very average. But I'm still of the opinion he's the second best heavyweight of all time. So, look, I know lots of things come into it. I suppose my point is you can't bring down Mike Tyson if you're still going to have the likes of Marciano and Lewis and those types of guys up there. You just can't. Anyway. What's that, Andrew? I hate the start. Well, he's entitled to his opinion, Andrew. He's entitled to it. What's that, Logan? Thoughts on Danny Taggart? I'm not really sure, Logan. I know he's got a gym up in Bendigo now. He had a few amateur fights. So, yeah, that's about my thoughts on him, Logan. I hope he's doing well. He's got his gym up in Bendigo, and apparently he's got a good gym happening, so all the best to him. All right. I'll keep going down there because there's a bit going on with you guys. It's good to have a good debate going, isn't it, guys? Isn't it? It could be worse. We could be debating Harris versus Trump, but we're debating Mike Tyson. I'd probably prefer this than Trump versus Harris, if I'm being honest. All right. Jules, Ozboxing posted that Billy Polkinghorne turned 28 today. I did see that. Yep, shout out to Billy, but didn't realise he was that old. How fast do you think No Limit will try to move him? They have to move him quick, Jules. I'd be giving him 5 fights next year if I was them. At least 4, if not 5, and within the next sort of 12 months, step him up to world level and see whether he's got what it takes. They haven't got time to muck around. Yeah, Batman, Ali would wash him, no disrespect. Yeah, I'm with you. Again, I'm sticking up a lot for Mike Tyson here, but I do agree that Ali would have beaten him. I do. Yep. Andy, a lot of fans not liking IBF Mandos, but they are the sanctioning body that has been most strict about honouring Mandos on time. Has been frustrating, but might encourage champs to fight more often. I agree, Andy, but as I said earlier, it's the circumstances of enforcing these fights. I mean, to be stripping fighters that have just won undisputed belts within a week or two of them winning it is ridiculous. And making fighters fight fighters they've beaten a year or two earlier in other fights, it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, in theory, it's great, Andy, that's for sure. All errors have weaknesses and strengths. It's hard to fault Marciano. We fought everyone he could in his era. Same with Lewis and Klitschko. That's why I usually don't compare errors. Yeah, it's good, Larry. But all I'm saying is you cannot... Rocky Marciano. Yep, Batman. Yep, okay. Ali would have washed him. I agree. I just think that would have been a mismatch, Batman, if I'm being honest. I think Muhammad Ali would absolutely carve Rocky up and probably stop him in 5 or 6 rounds. Just my opinion. Again, no disrespect to Rocky. The guy was like 5'9" or 10 or something and about 190 pounds. I mean, this is... Whoever said about the errors, and it's hard. Because that... the time when Rocky was around, that was the weights. But these days, or even when Ali fought, you're tiny. So, yeah, I know, Shadow Boxer, slander, I know. Larry, Marciano was great. Look at how small he was for a heavyweight. Obviously, he wasn't as skilled as Ali or Tyson as boxing like any sport progresses, but I still enjoyed seeing his fights. Very entertaining. I'm not, like, I suppose I am, Larry, but I'm just saying a lot of the people who run Mike Tyson down are saying how great Marciano was. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Mike Tyson's resume and the fighters he fought were 10 times better than the resume that Marciano put together. I'm just saying. And it's not Marciano's fault. He didn't have those guys. But I just think it's very hypocritical to be ripping down Mike Tyson, and then you've got someone like Rocky Marciano who fought, what, 4 or 5 not half decent, 4 or 5 great fighters, every single one of them over the hill. There wasn't one peak fighter that he fought in a legacy fight. And that's not opinion, that is fact. So that's all I'm saying. You've got to have the same rationale to go across all fighters and all generations. Don't just pick your targets. Max Schmeling, not one of the best. Great fighter and friend of Joe Lewis. Yeah, well, I'm standing by. Hey, very, very good heavyweight, Andrew, but one of the best? No, I stand by it. Who else did he beat besides Joe Lewis? Look, he's a very, very good fighter, Andrew. Don't get me wrong. And one of the best of his era. And to beat Joe Lewis was a great achievement. But I don't think he was a great. No, I don't think he was a great fighter. Just one of the best around at the time, like of that generation. And of course, he beat Joe Lewis. But where is he? Let's have a bit of a look at his record just quickly. We might be going a bit of overtime tonight. But you guys started it. All right, so, I mean, when he fought Joe Lewis, he had a 48-7-4 record. So, I don't know, he'd been beaten a few times, and there you go, one of his losses was a guy that was one draw. He had another one, he lost to a guy that was 39-21-16. He got knocked out by a guy that was 21-7. I know things were different a little bit back then, but he lost to a guy that was 70 wins, 22 losses. I'm just saying, very, very good fighter. But a great? No. A great? Joe Lewis was a great. Muhammad Ali was a great. Jack Dempsey was a great. Max Schmeling, very, very good fighter, not a great. I better move on before I cop it here. Oh, geez. This was just going to be a pretty uneventful night here, guys, and we're all in our soapboxes at the moment, but it's good. As long as it's respectful, then no drama. All right, Andy, 0 is overrated in my opinion. It's the body of work that matters. Marciano beat Joe Lewis, but I still have Lewis number 1 or 2 all-time greats. Marquez beat Pac-Man, but Pac-Man achieved more. Couldn't agree more, Andy. Records mean shit. Geez, should I say it? I'm a bit reluctant to say this, but I'm going to anyway. Rocky Marciano's 49-0 record means nothing. Just because you got a 49-0 record means nothing. Okay? Yes, he retired undefeated, but put his resume up against a Joe Lewis, Muhammad Ali, even a Mike Tyson, a Lennox Lewis, Larry Holmes, you name it. His record does not stack up. And when people say, oh, but he didn't beat the 49-0 record that Marciano has, come on, guys. Chavez could have retired with an 89-0 record, but he didn't. You know why? Because he wanted to keep fighting the best and ended up losing multiple times. But I can tell you, Julio Cesar Chavez is a 10 times greater fighter than what Marciano was, and he's got an inferior record. It just doesn't make sense to me. Yes, Shadow Boxer, I'm in Victoria. Jeez, I think I'm better get off the airways tonight. I think I'm about to cop it here, but anyway. Who is the greatest living boxer? Surely Mike is close to the top of the list. Good point there, Jules. Larry Holmes for me. If you're talking heavyweights, Jules, Larry Holmes, I think he's the greatest heavyweight alive. I had Larry at number 3 on my all-time list. Any news on Andrew and Jason? Says Peter, thank God, Peter. Thanks for changing the subject, even if it's just briefly. Jason is looking for a fight in Japan, Peter, and Andrew looks like he's going to fight mid-December in Melbourne. Hopefully, I might probably be on a wild fighter card, I would say. Batman, Rocky Marciano at that size would be at 175, but if you but if you take into account people getting bigger, he may have been cruiser or even heavy. Yeah, that's why it's hard to judge across all the different eras there, Batman. Oh, greatest living across all weights. Yeah, probably Duran. I agree. Shadow boxer across all weights. Yep, Roberto Duran. And this is a guy who, what did Duran lose? A dozen fights? Jeez, that's why I don't rate records at all. Schmeling was a good guy. Was just painted with the same brush. Yeah, he was as the others. Yep. Love the story how he became lifetime friends of Joe Lewis. Yeah, I'm not saying he wasn't a great guy, Andy. I'm just saying we've just got to stay in our lanes when it comes to labelling fighters great. Yeah, Jack Johnson must have been some fighter. I agree, Peter, but there's just no footage of him. That's why it's hard to rate people like Jack Johnson, because we just don't have any footage. I wasn't going to say it, Andy, but you called him Smelling. Max Smelling. Hey, it's all good, Garden Snake. No dramas at all. No, it's cool. You've got your opinions, and that is totally fine. Jake Paul is a pound-for-pound spud. Peter, do we need a pound-for-pound list of the biggest spuds in boxing? Oh, geez, give us some names. Maybe not now, because we're actually right on our time. We're going to keep going until I get through these comments, but the biggest pound-for-pound spuds in boxing, or the most overrated fighters in boxing, the pound-for-pound list. Give me a call, and we'll maybe address them next week. All right, I think we're almost there. Jeez. Yeah, Bill, we want to see the best fights. The best don't care for zero. As I said, Bill, I don't even look at records anymore. I don't look at records when I'm rating fighters, because, again, as I said, Roberto Duran, Julio Cesar Chavez, all lost multiple fights. Tommy Hearns, and they're some of the greatest fighters of all time. And then you get other fighters that have had very, very good records, but just haven't fought anybody. And that's another reason why I respect Canelo Alvarez so far, because take this Benavidez bullshit out of it. Fought and beat, 99% of the people he's been in the ring with. And, and given lots of fighters a crack at those belts and beaten them, and fought often. So I'm a Canelo fan as well. But I'm sure he falls into the Tyson category of, they love him or you don't. Walcott, Charles and Moore were close to the peaks. No, Andrew, come on, mate. Walcott was 38. I think Charles was 37. Moore might have been in his 40s, Andrew. Come on, mate. Do your research, Andrew. I hope I'm right there. I think I am. Yeah. So let me just, all right, hang on. We're going into overtime. You've forced me into it. I just want to have a quick look at where the guys were in the career with Rocky when he fought them. All right, so when he fought, Archie Moore had 176 fights by the time Rocky Marciano got to him. And I'm pretty sure he was in his 40s. Ezard Charles had 97 fights. Jersey Joe Walcott. I'm just trying to think. Hang on, I'll get onto it next week, but I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive that Walcott and Charles were in the late 30s, and Moore might have been in his early 40s. So, all right, Shadowbox, I just want to say it's my first time coming across this live chat channel. When live, I'd love to keep it up. Thanks, Shadowboxer. We'll do it again. Johnson, awesome fight. Yeah, he was. Based on his record, though, Andrew. All right. Oh, hang on. That's my wife. This is what we're missing in the world and need more of. Civil discourse. Yes, we don't all have to agree on everything, but can still have good conversations. Exactly. You don't have to agree with somebody, but you can at least say, okay, that's cool. I disagree, but hey, peace. Let's move on. What else are we going to talk about? This day and age we're in at the moment, there's no grey. It's either black or white. And if you're black and they're white, or you're white and they're black, there's no in between. There's no meeting in the middle. It's like, well, you're the enemy and I hope you die. That's pretty much where we are at the moment. Don't like it. Anyway, a couple more comments before we call it a night. AP, Mike Tyson was a great contender, but as a heavyweight champion, he was horrible. He lost all the fights that counted. AP, but mate, he had... Hang on. We're going into double overtime now. Hang on. Where are you? I'm going to have to... Now, AP. Let's just bring up his record here. I should know this off the top of my head because I've been obviously a fan of his for a long, long time. My internet's just decided to play up a bit here. Come on. Hang on, we'll bring it up again. I don't know what's happening here. All right, I think we're right. All right, here we go. We're going back to 1986 here, AP, just for you. All right, so he beat Trevor Berbick for the WBC belt. Then he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 heavyweight title fights in the 2.5 years after that. 9 world title fights in 2.5 years before losing to Douglas. Okay, so I don't think you can really say that his record was no good in world title fights because he had, after winning the belt, he had 9 fights. So 10 in total, and then came back and beat Frank Bruno and Selden and a few of the others. So later on in his career, yes, you're right. But still, I mean, geez, that's not a bad record. To say, what's it say there? He lost all the fights that counted, mate. He unified the heavyweight title. Unified it. That's not losing fights that matter. But anyway, all that counted. Andrew Hooney, all right, he's the first one off the rank. Okay, George Foreman, Larry Holmes, my number 3 and 4 all-time great heavyweights. A compliments-based Lennox, my number 5. Yeah, well, regardless of the Ali fight, George Foreman, what he was able to come back and do, unbelievable. Andy, I can't remember who I had at number 5. I think it was Ali, Lewis, Holmes. Might have actually been Foreman at number 4 after Larry, and you're right, I might have had Holmes at number 5. Lennox at number 5 as well. I didn't have Rocky Marciano in my top 10. I didn't have him in there. I think there was others that are well ahead of him. So Rocky fans come at me. Butterbean, definitely one of the greatest pound-for-pound spuds. Well, like what happens, Dan, as soon as he fought someone that could actually hold his hands up and punch back, he folded pretty quick, didn't he? I actually saw that on one of the social media pages the other day. Someone brought it up. And this is why Butterbean never got the fight with, was it Tyson he was after? Wow. Pound for pound, spud list in boxing got to be extended to a top 30. Well, give me some names. All right, we'll get a couple of comments there. I think we're at the end of it. Andy, he was, mate. One of the greatest of all time was Archie Moore, but the facts are that he went on too long and lost a few fights at heavyweight when he was actually a light heavyweight. You remember he lost to Muhammad Ali as well, didn't he? So, yeah, stay off Twitter, guys. Shadowboxer says, or X, whatever it's called now. That is the cesspit from hell. That is. It is. I hate getting on there. I'll get on there once in a blue moon. So, is that right, Pete? I knew they used to fight some long rounds back then, but 100 rounds. Wow, that's crazy. All right. What else have we got? I think that is going to do it there, guys. I think that is some comments amongst yourself. So, guys, that is going to do this week's episode. Tommy Fury, another spud. Guys, look, it's been a healthy debate. I really appreciate everyone being civilized in their discussions. I think it's great that we can all disagree on certain things, but do it respectfully. No dramas with that. If people disagree, that's fine, but we just try and keep it respectful and and try and keep it friendly. Go to other pages if that's what you want to do, or Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called these days. So, but another great night of interacting with you guys. And again, I really appreciate everyone, the super chats as well. Really, again, appreciate everyone that tunes in and has contributed to the super chat fund. And let's hope we can put it towards some sort of good cause down the track anyway. But guys, thank you again. Make sure you watch out every morning for Walking Boxing and plenty of other content coming your way as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all that sort of stuff, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.